Okay. We will begin with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Capeen, I believe you have that.
Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Sherry Silk. Sherry has worked in animal welfare for 35 years and is Chief Executive Officer of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. Welcome, Sherry. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord God, who made the earth and every living creature, help us always treat with compassion and love the animals that are entrusted to our care, that they may not suffer from our neglect nor become victims of any cruelty, and grant that in caring for them we may find a deeper understanding and appreciation of your love. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Suarez?
Here.
Cohen?
Here.
Maniscalco? Here. Capeen?
Present.
Miranda? Here. Reddick? Here.
Here. Okay. First, we have a presentation on approval of the agenda. Yes, sir. We have a motion by Councilman Suarez, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, now we go to ceremonial activities. We have a presentation of a commendation for Women's History Month to be made by Councilwoman Capeen.
Good morning. The women that are here from Women's History Month, please come up. Thank you. I need support. Use it. Here you are.
I invite everybody else. Yeah.
Okay. This commendation is being presented to the committee to recognize them in their annual Women's History Month celebration. And it's going to be on March 12, 2019. But I want you to know that tomorrow, March 8th, is National Women's History Month, or National Women's Month. Anyway, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Tampa City Council proudly recognizes the City of Tampa's 23rd Annual Women's History Month celebration on March 12, 2019, and acknowledges the outstanding effort of the 2019 Women's History Month Celebration Planning Committee. Declared Nationwide Women's History Month is a tribute to the generations of women who have committed and contributions have proven invaluable to our nation's history and contemporary society. Tampa City Council salutes City of Tampa Women's History Month Celebration Planning Committee for their diligent work in highlighting our community leaders and congratulates this year's Josephine Howard Stafford Memorial recipient, Senior Assistant City Attorney Jan McLean. Attorney McLean has served the city for over 13 years and is responsible for one of the city's most precious resources, the city's water supply. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you for your efforts. This will be my last women's well, no, honorary chair. I couldn't remember the title. Honorary chair, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you all. And thank you. Would you like to say something?
And you will be missed. We will definitely miss having you as our honorary.
Call me back. I'll come back to do this every year, especially for the next 4 years, depending on how that turns out.
That's true.
And I think
Well, thank you. And I just want to tell everyone a little bit more about our event, which will be on Tuesday at the Tampa Bay History Center at 10:30. My name is Jennifer Deets, and I am co-chairing the Women's History Month Committee with Allison Smith. Yeah. And as you can see here, we have a fantastic committee who has been really dedicated and working hard to make sure that our event on Tuesday will be a success. And as Councilwoman Capeen mentioned, we are honoring Senior Assistant Attorney Jan McLean this year. Mayor Buckhorn will present her with the Josephine Howard Stafford Memorial Award. I would also like to add that this year our theme is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence, and our keynote speaker will be former State Senator Arthenia Joyner, and she will be talking about her experiences at the Woolworth lunch counter sit-ins in the 1960s. So we expect a great program. We hope to see you there on Tuesday at 10:30 at the History Center. The last thing I would like to add is that we have our Dress for Success coordinators with us today, and our Women's History Month committee does partner with Dress for Success. So you will see the donation bins around the city of Tampa getting professional outfits for women re-entering the workforce. And we have one downstairs here in City Hall and at different buildings, and I think we've collected about 200 items. About 200 items so far, so we're hoping to do more. So we really thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday at the Tampa Bay History Center at 10:30. So
Excellent.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Can we take a photo? Does anybody have a camera to take, or a phone?
Hi there.
There, hi. Wait a minute. Let me get, right here, because I gotta keep going here in a minute.
If you don't mind. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for all your hard work.
And next we have Ms. Sherry Silk, the CEO of the Humane Society of
Just a
Tampa.
second, we have one more.
I'm sorry.
Jan McLean, is she in here? Is she here? Jan? I thought I saw her come in. She left. She didn't know. I can wait if she's not here in a minute. I heard that. Why not? Well, she's coming. She's coming right down. The point is, she's coming right down. Please bear with me. She didn't know she was going to get this. And Sal was supposed to have her here. He said he'd make sure she was here. So there he is. Where is she? I was.
Ms. Capeen, the reason she's not here, just like any other strong woman, she doesn't listen to a man and tell her where she's going to be. All right, let's be honest, okay?
I know, I've been doing that for years. Hi, Jan. Come over here.
What did I do this time?
You did great. That's what you did. Tampa City Council is proud to honor Senior Assistant City Attorney Jan McLean as she is named the 2019 recipient of the Josephine Howard Stafford Memorial Award. This prestigious award is presented to a current or former female city employee with 5 or more years of service who has demonstrated an outstanding commitment to a position with the City of Tampa and who has enriched our city and community by notable contributions and achievements. Attorney McLean has served the city for over 13 years and among other duties is responsible for one of our city's most precious resources, the city's water supply. Attorney McLean is the only attorney to have served all 3 major water management districts. Her work has earned distinction both locally and nationally, and in 2012 and 2013, she received the Home Rule Hero Award from the Florida League of Cities. Additionally, in 2017, she was invited to the Florida section of the American Water Works Association to be their speaker in Washington, D.C. during the legislative session. The Tampa City Council thanks and congratulates Attorney Jan McLean on this remarkable occasion as she is named the recipient of the Josephine Howard Memorial Award. And we present you this commendation. And thank you for your very hard work. You're welcome. You want to say anything? Get your turn.
Yes, I take I take instructions.
One more, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I did want to say thank you. I never consider myself working alone. I am a member of such an awesome team, and it's been a privilege and an honor to be here with the city and to represent the departments that I do, the city council and the mayor. It's just such an opportunity for an attorney of all of the creative things that we do here. And this recognition is very humbling and not deserved, but very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jan, just a second.
She said, "Uh-oh, Charlie."
Charlie's not going to say anything that the public should know. You know, we meet on water about 2 or 3, sometimes 4 times a month in the city of Tampa, discussing the things that we have to do in the future. And there's 2 individuals besides Jan that are responsible, Brad Baird, and I call him Kansas. And because I call him Kansas, because he comes from Kansas, because half the time I forget his name, Chuck Weber. And when I meet with them, and they're prepping me for what I got to say, what I think I got to say, and we have to come to an agreement, they tell me one thing, and I look at Jan, if she does this, I mean, it's okay. If she does this, I mean, don't do that. But they haven't called now. It's like a pitcher and a catcher setting signals. And so I've been doing this with her for 13 years or so, and she's one of the great, not only attorney, a realistic individual who talks about not water for Tampa, but water for the whole region. And she's been very diligent in doing the things that we're coming, hopefully we can accomplish come in April. And I want to personally thank you for that.
Thank you so very much.
Hey, now that you said that, when you look over to me on your right and I go like this, or I go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
All right, we have item number 2, a presentation to the Humane Society of Tampa. Who doing that?
Sherry Silk. She's going to make a presentation of what's going on with the Humane Society.
Good morning again, and I want to thank you guys each year. Yoli has been on our advisory council, Yoli Kapeen, for many years, and we're certainly going to miss you. But thank you, because I think it's important that you hear how important animals are to our community. You know, 68% of Tampa residents have 1 or more pets, dogs or cats or rabbits or whatever, and we're a big part of that. And last year, we saved nearly 10,000, just under 10,000 dogs and cats, 93% save rate, which is a no-kill for space facility, and we saw 46,000 owned pets in our animal hospital, which is affordable health care so residents can keep their animals. We employ 107 employees. We have 400 active volunteers. I also passed out in the packet, we're very involved with the city. We have another free shot clinic, totally free, for the disadvantaged folks that need shots for their pets. That's going to be at the River Tower Park on Bird Street. And we partner with Hillsborough County Pet Resource Center. They're going to be kind enough to give free licenses for the citizens so that not only will they get free shots, they'll get a free dog tag as well. And then Bark in the Park is coming right up March 23rd, and that's going to be at Curtis Hickson. That's always a lot of fun. About 400 to 4,500 people attend that. And then our biggest news ever, and I know I've been talking about this for the last couple years, is we are going to break ground on our 4-story, 45,000 square foot building in West Tampa, and we'll even be able to help save more animals and do more for the community. We're still fundraising, of course, but we are going to have when we have a grand opening party, and when we have our breaking ground ceremony, you all get an invitation. I hope you'll come out, because animals are important to the people and the citizens here in not only in the city of Tampa, but in Hillsborough County. So any questions, or are we all set? Yeah, one question. Okay.
I just want to comment that what you've done in the whole society is a wonderful thing to save the animals and the pets.
Thank you.
But more importantly, also, that parking lot that you're building, I've never seen one done, constructed so well that you're doing there in the corner.
Yeah.
across from you, and it's just a beautiful thing. I know they've been working on it. They've done all kind of pipe laying and ground cleaning, and they've been working on it for a couple of weeks now, and I've never seen a
I've never,
parking-
I had no idea parking lot would take so long or be so expensive, but
I
that's what you
never
have to
did
do
either.
these days.
So I wanna
And it's
thank
gonna
you
be
for doing
landscaped,
that.
it'll look
It's
very
gonna be
pretty
the-
for the neighborhood.
I guess the nicest looking parking lot in the city.
Well, that would be nice. And I think our building, well, the building, once you see the shelter, it's gonna be amazing. It really
Thank
is
you
gonna
for
be
what you do,
amazing.
all of you.
Mr. Maniscalco?
I just want to say, thank you again for all you do and for employing so many people, especially
Yes.
in my district. I drive by
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
And I learned recently of some interesting fun facts from that property of a connection to Elvis Presley.
Yes, that's
And
right, you saw the
Colonel
picture.
Tom Parker lived on that property, and
He
of
did.
course, you have the pet cemetery
Yes,
there.
yes.
And I know the Times ran an interesting story about it.
They
so
did.
It's interesting to see that kind of history and story right here in West
Yeah,
Hampton.
Colonel Parker was actually the first, what they call the animal control, the dog catcher from this area. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then the fact is that we're committed to stay at Tampa, and it's a great location.
And how
being
long
in
have you
West
been there? Since when?
How long have I been there?
No, the Humane
Oh.
Society.
Oh, my
Since-
God. Well, we opened the actual shelter in 1921, and then we've added on and added on. I mean, it's literally falling down around us, so it's
Yeah.
past time.
Yeah, but we're glad that you're there, and I know, there was, future plans for expansion and
Yes.
growth and everything,
Yes.
so, it's
Thank you.
a blessing to have you right there in the.
Thank you. I
in
think
that
the animals
neighborhood.
really deserve it. They really deserve better
They
than what
do.
we can give them
They
now,
do.
so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Stay right here? Okay.
They're all women, yay.
Yay, women taking over, right?
Yes, yes. First of all, I want to put this up there,
Okay.
Park in the Park.
Okay.
And, let's see if we can. Can you see it?
Sorta. I like that,
Upside
though.
down?
It's upside down, though.
Okay. I'll
It's
put it
cool,
there.
this
I'll
little
put it
city
there
of
while
Tampa,
we-
look how cool that is with the dog looking on. I like that. I love the
Park in the
artwork.
Park.
Yep.
Yes, it's beautiful. That's the 23rd.
Yes,
Okay. Sharon.
yes.
Tampa City Council is proud to honor and recognize Sherry Silk, Chief Executive Officer of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay, for her endless dedication to the pets and their owners in our community. Arriving from Detroit in 2007, Sherry brought with her ideas, can-do attitude. You see the results of her can-do attitude, and experience to help end animal homelessness in Tampa. This mission wasn't for the faint of heart. In 2006, our county alone euthanized 27,000 unwanted pets. Day by day, step by step, Sherry continues to work to make her mission a reality. What had become the normal practice of our community is no longer acceptable, and it is because of her relentless work and knowledge that this policy is changed. Under Sherry's leadership, the Humane Society of Tampa Bay has accomplished these significant, remarkable milestones. In 2007, they joined the SPCA Mission Orange Program, a community-wide animal life-saving effort. In 2008, HSTV opened the Affordable Wellness Clinic. In 2012, brought the opening of the Affordable Full-Service Veterinary Hospital. In 2014, did I say 2012? Yeah, 2014. That same hospital was the first nonprofit veterinary hospital in Florida to be accredited by the American Animal Hospital Association. That's very important.
We're the first
And
one. which
You're
is
the
cool.
first
Yeah.
one, because I mentioned it to the zoo. I serve on the board.
Oh, okay,
And they were
okay.
very impressed,
Good.
as they should be.
Good.
And this year, Sherry will oversee the groundbreaking of the new DiBartolo Family Animal Shelter, a 45,000 square foot facility that will allow Humane Society of Tampa Bay to save even more lives. It is with gratitude Tampa City Council salutes Sherry, outstanding efforts and exceptional accomplishments in transforming our community into a better place for all our companion animals and their owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me give you a hug.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, really, don't. Here, hold this.
Okay, come hold this. Thank you. All right, thank you all. Appreciate that, sweetheart. Thank you.
I didn't realize we had never seen your recommendation.
Now you have.
All right, we will go to public comments. Mr. Sherman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. The Tampa City Council welcomes public comment at this time. 30 minutes have been set aside this morning for citizens speaking about matters that are not set for a public hearing. If you're here to speak on a matter that is set for a public hearing, you will have that opportunity later during today's meeting. If the matter is set for staff reports, your opportunity to speak is at this time. Speakers addressing items on the agenda will be given preference before citizens speaking on non-agenda matters. Each speaker is given 3 minutes. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and it is requested that your comments are not directed personally to a council member or staff member, but rather issues directed to the council as a body. City Council appreciates your cooperation in maintaining orderly conduct and proper decorum. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I am Sovereign Despot, Worldwide Global, Johnny Bernard Poof. Okay. I'm gonna start off with this picture, because I like this picture right here. And they know I was gonna put it back on there after they were talking junk to the man for hugging the flag when, like, most foreigners and workers don't even know what this flag right here really means. Yeah, and it's a good picture. Ain't damn right it is. Now, this right here. Okay. If you have families like this, and you can utilize them in order to help stop what's going on down there, add protection for these families, put them under witness protection, and utilize them to help what you call secure the situation down there. Right. Living entity, living kingdom. Worldwide, global, sovereign, American kingdom. First kingdom, first kings and queens, first living people, first nation, first free, absolute sovereign. First righteous, Yud Hey Wah Hey, acknowledging, way of knowledge, wisdom, comprehension, living, immediate, actual government. First family, starseeds, indigo, first living will, first living status quo. First American king, despot, most high chief, most high shaman, free and accepted. East traveler, for west travelers were full of darkness, ignorance. I am king, despot, boo. I am reigning. Well, Johnny's true law. I'm trying to explain some stuff, because like a lot of people are confused. Reclaim America, Patriot Front, U.S. Sovereign American Kingdom, indigenous, native, tribal, 13 free colonials, free and accepted Mason and Inicio stars, cowboys and Indians, East travelers, West, sit down. We the people, Tampa Bay and Indian Village Kingdom, switch from Satan to Yud Hey Wah Hey. YHWH is a tetragrammaton. It's time to recognize Tampa, Tampa Bay, capital of America, headquarters of the globe, Freedom Commission. And that's for the record, by the record, on the record. For the living will, on the living will, for the living record, on the living record. The United States admitted yesterday that they are not a government. So therefore, that switch is completed. Tampa is the immediate and main government for America and for the entire globe. The rest of these are businesses, and you know that you automatically forfeit under Tampa. Thank you.
Good morning, Tampa Council. My name is Dianna Klein. I'm here today on behalf of our preborn neighbors who are being murdered every week in Tampa under your watch and jurisdiction. It's time to end the bloodshed and punish those who are murdering babies in the womb. I have an official medical diagram that shows how the killers kill the babies. This is a baby in the womb at 9 weeks. The killer takes a cannula and punctures it through the uterus. And then he takes a heavy vacuum and vacuums and suctions all the body parts. These babies are literally pulled apart while they're still alive. This is a very brutal death for these babies. Then the killer takes a curette, scrapes the rest of the body parts and placenta out of the uterus. And then there's an assistant who has to go in and count all the baby body parts to make sure there's nothing left in the mother's womb. and this is how it's done. And then at the end of this, they actually piece the body parts back together, and then this is what the babies look like when they piece them back together. And so I'm here today as an abolitionist to show you, just as the abolitionists back in the 1800s showed the brutality of slavery in America back then, so abolitionists today of abortion are out to show the brutality of what's being done to our preborn neighbors in the womb here in Tampa and across the country. You have a God-ordained duty to preserve justice and to punish this evil. Roe v. Wade is not a law. It is a fundamentally flawed court opinion that is to be completely ignored. You must interpose on behalf of the preborn. Learn how to interpose by learning about the doctrine of the lesser magistrate at defytyrants.com. You can also go to freethestates.com to learn how others across the nation are proactively seeking legislation that will criminalize this murder in the womb. God's word tells us that when the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, that the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. That's in Ecclesiastes 8:11. This is what's happening in Tampa and across the nation. 1 in 4 women have a heart fully set to murder their little son or daughter in the womb. We need to change this vicious cycle. Children are a gift from God and need to be loved, nurtured, and protected in the womb, because love begins in the womb. I welcome each of you to join me in front of the murder mills and get this information into the hands of murder-minded mothers. All these women who are with child, there's plenty of help for them. You can also find out more about the missionary work that I do at lovethepreborn.com. That's lovethepreborn.com. Thank you.
I start. Hi, my name is Lawrence Gramp. I'm a member of, or I'm a citizen of Tampa. I just came today really to address a public issue and make it known to the public on an issue of just police brutality and inadequacy in TPD. I've had several issues where I've been threatened with physical violence and multiple other things by police officers in District 2. I brought it to their superiors' attention, and when done so, I've actually had their superiors, Captain Stout in name of District 2, call my family and make threats on the phone to my family. These are police officers. They should never threaten anybody. They have a badge and an oath they swear to when they take that badge, and they should never threaten anybody with any kind of physical violence. And quote unquote from Captain Stout, he told my mother that the reason they act like that is because the homeless in Tampa are derelict and trash, and they don't want them in their city. He should never have an opinion like that to speak to anybody. That's not, just because somebody is homeless doesn't mean that they're trash or they're derelict or they're ignorant. It just means that they're on a hard time. And we should never have police officers trying to hurt us, trying to threaten us, trying to arrest us on false charges. And especially, they should never, ever call our families and threaten our families when our families try to call their superiors and try to get something done in the correct way. I've tried to go about every order that I'm supposed to go in, chain of command, talking to internal affairs. I've lost investigations, sent emails. I've done everything I can do. And I was told yesterday or the day before by Captain Stout that if I didn't get the blank out of Tampa, there's something, or else, with a ... I should never be threatened like this, especially by a captain of the police force, let alone an officer or a corporal or a sergeant, but a captain. And also, I set an appointment to try to get an appointment to speak to the chief of police, and he let me know that he reports directly to the chief of police and that he will make sure that I don't get no appointment and that I will never be able to speak to him. So I just wanted to make this a public issue, because police brutality is a very serious issue. They should never threaten or put their hands on any citizen. And just whatever their opinions are on how they feel about homeless people, they should keep them to themselves. They should not bring it into the public. They shouldn't bring it to work with them. They take an oath and they get paid to do a job just like every other employee in the United States. If they're not going to do their job, then they should turn their badge in and give it back and get another job. I just feel like this was the issue that I wanted to bring before the council. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Montesnot, Tampa, Florida. I think you have people speaking on issues that's dear to their heart, near to their heart, abortion, person saying they're an abolitionist. That's an esteemed position to be in, even if it's self-appointed. A person talking about police brutality, what happens here in this city of Tampa, happens every day. The black community see it in its worst forms, police violence and police brutality. You know, some people don't ever want to hear what you have to say. So every time the citizenry speak, they get up and leave. That's the female city council sitting there, and they say, don't identify people by names. The city have recently spoken, and what the city have said, they've spoken with votes. The city have said that Charlie Miranda garnered the most votes in this election, and that's who should be the next mayor. Not Jane Castor, who goes back to bicycle stops and police brutality. Not David Strauss, who based the whole campaign around the exploitation of African people in bicycle stops and red light cameras and all that. We in the hood, we already know these things going on. We already know they going on every day. We know all our youth, licenses are suspended, problems with child support, economic problems, all kind of other problems. But we need someone who's going to represent the people, the masses of Tampa, represent the working class people and the aspirations of the working class people. And apparently the city of Tampa have stated that person is Charlie Miranda, the only person here in 30 years who have ever used the word deficit, and no one else know what the word deficit means. But they give the developers all type of breaks, tax breaks, property across the street, damn near giveaway, bicycle lanes that you see no bicycles in, $40 million in Riverfront Park with 87 parking spaces. Where do you spend $40 million in a park and have 80 parking spaces? Insane giveaways. A mayor that sits right down there that called black women bitches and called for the lynching of an African man. Totally disrespectful. Got a hatred for African people and got a special hatred for poor and working class people. And when people talk, the city council members get up and leave out, disrespectful as ever. People make faces when people bring their point of view because they don't like abortions or because they don't like police violence or they don't like something else. And people, the citizenry of this community, don't get any fair treatment. Period. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Todd Pressman, 334 East Lake Road, number 102 in Palm Harbor, Florida. I'm here directly today in regard to vendors, fireworks, flowers, trees, and indirectly for dozens of calls I received regarding the 10 issue. If I could ask everyone here in attendance who has concerns about the 10 issue and your businesses, please stand up. We know, would you excuse me, sir? If you would please excuse me, thank you. So there have been no local incidents that we're aware of that have generated this. We attended a meeting about a year ago with the staff. We were told there would be inclusion and communication and to work with them, but as far as we know, there's been no call for meetings or any interfacing or any collaborative work on the issue. What we believe, and I'm not an expert in the Florida building code, what we believe is that the staff has cobbled together from the building code from a number of different sections. For example, 3102 talks about membrane structures. Section 3103 talks about tents and other membrane structures for a period of less than 180 days shall comply with the Florida Fire Prevention Code. Staff certainly has the right to a permit, but what they're requiring for that permit is extensive, aggressive, and the business community, as I've heard, feels it will be damaging and put them out of business. For example, require a general contractor, which is estimated to cost $10,000 for large events. Signed sealed engineering plans, signed sealed safety plans. Also instituting an aggregate. So if you have more than one tent or multiple tents, they're going to count the full square footage and potentially put you and trick you into a higher category. Requiring a minimum 30-day submittal. Well, once you have a site plan, including new 18-item site plan, along with the signed sealed, there's going to be submits and resubmits and submits and resubmits, which is part of staff's job, but that's going to take time For example, I got an email from the Tampa Boat Show. They indicated that their clients come forward just a few days before the event. That's not going to work. And as well, also increases the review up to a 5-department or 5-officer review, spreading those type of reviews through the staff. So what we're here today asking for is a collaborative effort to work towards these issues. There's primarily and ultimately a lot of confusion as to what's allowable, what's not allowable, what the staff is putting together. They have produced a list, but what is permissible, what's not permissible. And I will say that as you've gotten calls down here, as I have, that there's no question that this business and industry, from the manufacturers to the tent people, to many people who use them. One tent company sent me a list of 120 clients. They are all at risk and severely concerned that their business is going to be damaged or eliminated. We appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Ma'am, I got to come up here. I'm handicapped, that's why I was sitting down. You come up here. No, I didn't stand up. You're right. I was sitting down because I'm handicapped. But I was here before she was. Thank God for you. My name's Pastor Frank Williams, 1112 East Scott Street. I've been coming down here year after year, but don't seem to get no results, as if y'all don't care how you treat people of my color. But one thing about it, we need to understand, we should respect all peoples. We all pay taxes. And when y'all don't have no separation when it come down to black, you take our money as if it's not green. But the thing about it, first I'm going to read some scripture to you because I know y'all not going to give me long. I'm coming out of the book of St. Luke, 12th chapter. In the meantime, when they were gathered together, innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they strove one upon another, he began to speak, which is Jesus Christ, who first his disciples all. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which are hypocrisy. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid. That shall not be known. Everything that we do is going to be known unto God. God knows what everybody do. Whether you respect God or not, you should respect his holy word. The world was built upon God Almighty. And that's why I preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, because I'm a believer. Not to insult nobody, but to help people. We want souls to be saved, whether they believe or not. If it wasn't for God, we wouldn't be here to talk about that. So I thank God. Now I want to talk about another thing. The young black kids did not stand up to pledge allegiance to the flag. I'm standing right in here, and I didn't stand up to pledge allegiance to the flag. What the flag can do for me? All my trust is in God Almighty. And yet you want to put a little innocent black kid out of school. If you could tell me, explain to me what the Pledge of Allegiance was, it wrote up for black folk? No. It was wrote up just for white folk. And those white folk had to be rich and free. But we have to understand, we want to separate the people so much here in the city of Tampa, don't have no respect for me, nor any other black folk. But I have to tell you this here, God has respect for all of his children, whether you respect us or not. Another thing, I have a church located at 1112 East Scott Street. Been there for 30 years. They don't give me no kind of respect at all. Watch this here. The city of Tampa designated it as a historical landmark. Never paid a light bill, never paid a water bill, never even come into the church. But yet, this is what I want you to do. Lift that historical landmark off, because I'm getting ready to tear down the church. And then I want to go high to the rest of the building over there. But the thing about it, y'all gonna think y'all supposed to control the mentality of all black folks. But this one mentality y'all not gonna control. What's in my cranium comes from God Almighty. Thank y'all for these 3 minutes, but that's not enough, because I have a lot of other things I need to talk about. In the name of Jesus Christ, God bless all of the believers.
Good morning. My name is Kim Inicio, and I am here today on the Beta Bay Resurfacing Project, which is number 89 on the agenda today for staff report. I'm the owner of Swami Juice. We have 2 locations, one at Armature Works, and in April we're celebrating 5 years on the corner of Beta Bay and McDill. I've been a resident of Palmacia for 11 years as well. I was also here before City Council 2 weeks ago regarding the Beta Bay Boulevard and how the resurfacing project was proceeding without further public review, without public comment, and on any additional safety design features that would move forward with this project. I want to thank City Council for keeping a pulse on the matter and asking the transportation staff member to update Council here today. But within the last 2 weeks, the project is well underway. The resurfacing project appears to be almost halfway done between the area of McDill and Dale Mabry. And even within the last two weeks, I've witnessed cars traveling up to 50 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour speed zone on the new asphalt. The road is completely inhospitable to pedestrians, to bicyclists, and to speeding cars. My customers do not bike, they do not walk. I'm a corner juice bar in the heart of Palmacia, and it's too dangerous, it's not safe, and there are too many impediments for safe travel along the sidewalks. Those are my customers' words, those are my words, those are the neighborhood's words. My business and I have been very vocal in the process of the redesign options for Beta Bay, and yet the city and the county appear to be moving forward with the resurfacing project without notification to businesses, without notification with our public oversight, public comment, and without addressing the additional safety features recommended and supported by the city's own expert planners and engineers. I'm here today to ask the city to continue to study the redesign options for Beta Bay and to implement the safety features that the businesses have repeatedly asked for and that the neighborhoods that support us have asked for too. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Sharon Johnson. I'm with Galaxy Fireworks and also with the company Flower Hut. We have been in the city of Tampa for more than 35 years, pulling tents for Christmas trees, fireworks sales, and so forth. The city has trying to implement some new rules on erecting tents in the city of Tampa, which will put a lot of people out of business with the extra requirements that they are trying to do. And I just want to go over a few things. The standard operating procedures that the Construction Service Division wants to require, referencing the Florida Fire Prevention Code. The Florida Building Code Chapter 3102 and 3103 and Section 27-290 from the City of Tampa Code gives them their legal authority to enact their procedures. None of these codes reference either the architectural or engineered drawings for dead load calculations to permit a tent. The cost of these special requirements for a company like ours that operates multiple tent sizes, so in their code that they're trying to implement, you have different sizes. So if it's a 400 square foot tent, it requires a certain set of rules and so forth. We deal with multiple different sizes. So we would fall into multiple different categories. Temporary tents are not considered to be a membrane structure, and by code do not have the same load and structural requirements as a membrane structure. Our tents do meet the requirements set forth by Florida Fire Prevention Code in Section 25.2 tents. Our tents meet the requirement for the Florida Building Code 2017 edition, Chapter 3103, temporary structures. Our tents meet the requirements that is set forth in the City Code, Tampa Code, Section 27-29.8 tents. There is no data to show the urgent safety matter that we have to go in and make more rules regarding tents. I've been here for 35 years. I've yet to see anything that I'm aware of any tents that have injured people, that have collapsed, or any type of situation to bring this whole thing set forward to City Council as far as even enacted any type of more rules on tents. The cost associated with this is going to put local tent companies out of business. It will affect our company and other people that put up tents. This will affect Gasparilla. This will affect any type of situation out there that deals with tents and multiple tent sizes. To have to submit more than 30 days out in advance. It requires a site inspection for them to go out in advance. Some of our leases we do not get until a few weeks before we actually go out there, and then we come down, we pull the permits through the fire department and all the necessary permits that we need. This is going to add additional on top of on the requirements. I'm asking that City Council hopefully refers this back to them to actually either revisit, speak with the fire marshal on what things that he would like to see, because to me this is a little bit overkill. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Joseph Even. I live in Riverview, Florida, South County. However, the reason I'm here is in the concern over the tent issue. We own a carnival, and we play many, many events here in the city of Tampa, and we own all of our own tents, whether it's a hospitality tent people sit under, enjoy their snacks, or if it's a game concession or a straight sales tent. We own all of those. We put them up ourselves, and this new regulations, as well as the young lady said prior to me, we've been here, we've done many city events for the city, Gasparilla, I mean, just all over different schools right here in town, where we have to have a site plan 30 days ahead. I could be in a different state, for heaven's sakes. How would it be possible with these new regulations to be put in place for somebody as in myself to go that, moves from town to town throughout the year to be able to get that type of site plan in ahead of time? Some of the churches, the events that we do, the schools, you can't even get a site plan. They don't even know what type of attractions they want until a week, 2 weeks prior. So with this new regulation, it's going to be very difficult for somebody like myself. We happen to put up our own tents. We put up, our guys put them up ourselves. We can't put these tents up with these new regulations that you're trying to impose. I got 10 or 15 guys to put our tents up. That's going to put them out of work because now all of a sudden they can't put up the tent. The permit process is already now pretty strict, as in what you can do, what you can't do, how you have to do it, and then now you're going to try to impose these new rules, as in you have to have an engineer and a contractor and so forth to put these to approve them. This sort of stuff, it just makes it very, very difficult. Another thing we want to touch in on is the safety, as the one gentleman spoke and the young lady spoke about having any issues here that would cause such an alarm to put these rules in place to where you don't have so freely putting up a tent. Well, the way we see it is a tent, whether it's a 5x5 and they make them, or it's 100 by 100. A tent should be a tent, and the rules should apply to everybody if that's what they're going to impose, regardless the amount of time. The longer the tent is up, that would be a bigger question, a bigger red light for me, at least I would think it, because it's been up longer. One more thing is in regards to the flame retardancy of a tent. There are only 3 manufacturers in the U.S. that actually manufacture the canvas that make the tent. And all of those, and I have documentation too, and I will email it to you, that you cannot recertify the flame retardance of a tent. It's built into the canvas as it's being produced. So, and I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I'm Harold Adri with Harold's Rentals. We do many events in the Bay Area. I learned my trade with Ringling Brothers Circus. They say I know how to put up a tent. I'm quite sure some of you gentlemen has never even swung a hammer to put a tent up. I own 150 tents. Right now, you have cost me money because I cannot even tell my customers in the future what the costs are going to be and the cost of regulations. I cannot sell my business because I cannot produce the documentations you want. I can't sell my tents. We just got a new piece of paper. My wooden tables, I can't rent them. This is a health code, but this is not involved with you. But the tent itself, I cannot put them up to meet the code. It is cost prohibitive. So basically, you're wiping me out of business. I've been in business many years. I'm a military veteran. I know what I'm talking to. I helped defend this country, and you're going to put me out of business, along with all my friends and other people in this business and industry. Everything is made. These tents are like an erector set. One tent, the parts are used in many tents. So I'm going to have a 2-inch pipe, 10 foot long, with stamped on certified that you're going to inspect. It's cost prohibitive. What am I supposed to do? Go out and beg for mercy, or retain a lawyer and sue the city of Tampa because you put me out of business? None of you roll what we do. You need to come watch us when we set up. You need to come watch us as we tear down. You'll see what's involved in putting an event. You just had the Humane Society here. The irony is, with the regulations you got, we do the tents for them, for the shark clinics. You know what? With the regulations if you pass, I can't put up a tent for them. So you're going to hurt them.
Sir, we didn't pass any regulations. We're actually going to try to get to the bottom of it later. But we did not pass anything up here.
Well, right now, it's costing us money because we can't answer the questions because all this is pending. And that's just where we're coming from. And I'm quite certain quite a few other are in the same thing. I held off on purchases of tents and equipment because I didn't know what's going to happen with the city of Tampa. And this is not right here. Broward County, it's impossible. I've talked to many tent manufacturers. This is all over the country. The same regulations are trying to be passed out. You're going to wipe out a whole industry. And at one time, I was associated with the plush toy industry. You know what? The government put me out of business because I could not comply with the new regulations. The biggest reason, they took the duty off what I was making. So right now, if these regulations pass, I'm out of business again. Thank you for putting me out of business. I hope you change it and be realistic and come up with an answer so we can stay in business and work. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Freddie Jab, and I'm here to talk about the tent issue as well. I'm with Big City Events. We're a local Tampa event company that we produce a lot of popular events, including the Margarita Festival, Summer Run Festival, Sushi Battle. We help with the Julian B. Lane grand opening as well. And we also have nonprofit clients that we produce events for, including On Bikes, which the city is a partner with, and the Gasparilla International Film Festival, which is in a couple of weeks. Here, I'm giving you a little background on the events that we do. Typically the way we do events, events are 1 or 2 days in a weekend. The setup, including tents and any sort of stuff, is 2 to 3 days prior to the event. And then we break down the whole thing in 1 day and return the park to normal. Tents that we talk about, this is a diagram of a Margarita Festival. The most popular tents are 10 by 10 tents. And the most popular large tent, which is proposing the SOP, is a 40 by 60, which equals to 2,400 square feet. I point out some areas here that are 40 by 60 tents that we use. Most of these are used as shade tents mainly, and if there's any sort of electrical, we use extension cords to light up the tent itself. Stage is also part of this issue, that we require engineering plans and permitting for stage. Most of our stages that we do are mobile stages that will pop up itself if we don't build anything. It already has this engineering and all that. Layout and site map, like everyone mentioned, we changed our layouts all the way to the day before the event, and when we load in, we also change stuff. Pointing out the SOP, there's, do my time here, there's a couple of, the legal authority mentioned the SOP that is conflicting. First of all, FBC 3102, it doesn't apply because it's only for tents that are 180 days or longer. I've highlighted here. FBC 3103, I believe there's a misinterpretation of this issue, of this code. If you add the break here, it will basically say that 3103 applies to only tents that are put up for less than 180 days. I've also have a copy of a FBC interpretation report where it says that they agree that it only applies to tents that are put up for 180 days or less. Now, there is a commentary where a building permit may be required, keyword is may, to address several issues, including fire rating, tie down, and wind load, which we already do through temp permits, through the fire marshal office, exit lighting, egress pathways, which is done by the fire marshal on site, and evacuation plans for storm, that is done through the special events office. This is a city code where it says that the Tampa Parks and Rec can allow tents. And then just to bring this up, may I request an additional minute, Council, to finish my last slide? Thank you. For our structural safety, so we're always concerned about safety as well. For our structural safety, all the tents are fire rated and has engineering stamps on it. Attendee safety, the fire marshal office is always on site for our events to make sure we have egress and ingress and lighted signs and all that stuff. Again, I said tents are shade at 360-degree opening. You'll see these photos where basically they're under a 40 by 60 tent with nothing around it. There's always exits. The GC stamp, so GCs don't know events. We're just gonna end up paying GCs to just stamp for no reason. Finally, if this is going to affect, the costs are going to be burdensome. It's going to put us out of business. We're going to think about moving our events to a different city, and also it's going to create a huge economic impact on the visitors to Tampa, hotel room stays, the additional spending and the bars and restaurants that when we attract events here in Tampa. So yeah, and our staff, we also have 3 full-time staff that we're gonna have to think about downsizing. So thank you very much for your time.
Morning, Taylor Ralph. I want to thank all of you that put your name in the hat and ran for election. Congratulations to the winners, and also congratulations to those that fought a good fight, so I appreciate it. Here to talk about the tent issue as well. I'm on the board of the Gasparilla Music Foundation. We're putting on the Gasparilla Music Festival this weekend. Our understanding of these new requirements show us that it's going to cost more for us to put on the event. It's going to create more of an impact to the park where we actually are putting these tents down, because now you have to carry really heavy, bulky concrete structures and other things to weigh these tents down, and that requires lifts and semi-trucks and all sorts of other heavy equipment that could hurt our parks and actually tear up our parks more. The other thing to think about, I know a lot of people are talking about their businesses, etc., but does this make events in our public parks more expensive and then therefore make park events only for the rich? You know, we have to think about the communities that are going to be impacted that maybe can't afford to put on the event because it's going to cost so much more, and then all of a sudden you can only have an event in our parks if you can afford it. And I don't think that that's something that's an intended consequence. I think it's an unintended consequence. The other item I'm here to talk about is obviously Beta Bay Boulevard. I think you've heard a lot of public comment about this project over the last year. What I don't understand, and there's 3 questions I'd like you to ask Gene Duncan. Why was there not a second public meeting showing the updated design of the road? There has not been any public comment or public review of the current design of the road. Why did that not happen after thousands of emails and calls and public comments at City Council and at County Commission? We have gone to the County Commission because the city told us it was in their hands, and they tell us to come back to you. So how are we supposed to have any public comment on this road? Currently, there is no changes being made to the road other than leaving the 4-lane section. The second question I would like you to ask Ms. Duncan is, how much safer is this current design going to make the road? Our feeling is that leaving the road as 4 lanes with black, slick new asphalt is only going to increase speeding, so any minor safety improvements that she's calling a complete street treatment are actually going to make the road less safe. So in our opinion, we're not getting a complete street. We're still stuck with an incomplete street at the end of this project. The third question I would like to ask her is, we have requested additional safety features that can be added with paint. Can we narrow the lanes further to buffer the sidewalks more? Can we add bike boxes or other bike infrastructure on the current condition road? And why is TICO so slow at removing all the poles? Right now we are putting concrete around TICO poles and other poles that are going to be removed. We need to coordinate this better. It should have been coordinated better. There's still time to make some changes. Please ask her to think about the paint striping updates that can be made very quickly and not slow down the project at all. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Council. Daryl Stephanie, President and owner of Event Fest here in Tampa at 1200 West Cass Street. I'm here to talk about the temporary structures that staff is going to be reporting on later. I've had the privilege of being involved with a lot of special events over the years. The largest would be Gasparilla Celebration here in Tampa that we have a role in producing each year. This past year was my 27th year working on the Gasparilla Celebration here in Tampa. In those 27 years, I can tell you we've never had a tent flip over. We've never had a bleacher section flip over. We've never had a claim in 27 years for anything to do with tents or bleachers or platforms or stages. We're very blessed. When we met with construction services last year about this time, my question to them was, why are we looking at doing this? Their answer to us was, there's nobody that looks out for the safety of this. There's nobody that's overseeing this. That's just not true. There's a bunch of people in the room behind me that look after this. You know, I don't erect a tent myself, but I hire professionals that do. They know what they're doing. If they didn't know what they were doing, they wouldn't be in business. They certainly wouldn't be in business long because they couldn't get insurance if they had problems. And if they don't have insurance, then they wouldn't be working for us or anybody else. So I really think this is a classic case of a little bit of bureaucratic overreach. I think the Special Events Department does a great job, so does the Fire Marshal. They look at stuff that needs to be looked at, and we're used to working with them. We certainly know from a standpoint of others that have testified this morning, it will be a burdensome cost for anybody and everybody that uses temporary structures inside the city of Tampa. There are certainly events that we can do that we can pass those costs on to the consumer. If that's what the city of Tampa wants to do, that would be a shame. But I'm concerned because a lot of the events we do are fundraisers for not-for-profits in this town. There's many times those events don't make much money, depending on the weather, depending on what's going on. So any increase in cost to the fundraisers for the not-for-profits and things that we put on events for really could be burdensome. These not-for-profits need those revenues. Even the beer gardens at Gasparilla that benefit from all the beer sales at Gasparilla, they pay for their tents. Anything that they have to pay for that would be addition is going to be very costly for them and potentially burdensome and or prevent them from doing it. So we would certainly ask council to shed a light on this situation, see if this is something that we really need. And from our standpoint, we certainly don't. Thank you for your time.
Morning, Council. My name's Bruce Klosterman, and I'm with Tampa Tent and Rental. Tampa Tent and Rental's been in the city of Tampa almost a half a century, 44 years. I've been there 35 years. To my knowledge, we've not had any issues with liability suits or anything against the city or Tampa Tent. We have done the Gasparilla for 26 years. I mean, this policy is assuming that all structures are the same. And it's talking about like temporary membrane structures. We're talking like something like out at the Florida Fairgrounds where they have the dome where they built. Yeah, that's engineered. That's, that's to be expected. The engineering and the architectural cost of the hundreds of tents that we have, different configurations, and developing the wind loads for these tents, which go on all types of surfaces, grass, asphalt, concrete, boat docks, like at the convention center for the boat show. It's almost impossible, if not impossible, to come up with the wind loads for these. I mean, on a dock that's moved in 3 days in advance, we can't have a 30-day plan on file. It's not possible. It's not feasible. The vendors and the sponsors do not make a decision up until sometimes 2 to 3 days out that they're even going to attend this. And they have, they're bringing in multi-million-dollar boats and such at the convention center for the boat show. They bring in a lot of people to the city of Tampa. The Gasparilla event brings in a lot of people to the city of Tampa. What this is going to do is going to hurt the venues, the event people, all the way down the line in this city. And I don't think the city wants that. They're going to make fees. Some people call it a tax on the permitting and such, but that's not going to cover what's lost. It's a short drive across the bridge, and I believe that some people will take that drive if they get blocked in with all this paperwork. People like a smooth ride. They don't like potholes in front of them. So they may decide to go to a different venue, which is going to hurt the venues here, and the caterers, and everyone. It's definitely going to hurt the tent companies. Matter of fact, if we do this, if this goes into effect, with the 50 years of inventory that we have in stock, most of it will be virtually worthless. You have to purchase all new stuff that can be engineered. We use state-of-the-art equipment now. It's used across the industry, across the United States. Everyone uses it. Why the city wants this, I don't know. But it's going to put a lot of people out of work.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you.
All right, the gentleman that in the back of the line, you will be the last person to speak. We have exceeded our 30 minutes allotment. All right, so you're the last person.
Good morning, council members. I'm Don Barnes with Ye Mystic Crew of Gasparilla. Appreciate you letting me have a couple of seconds up here. About 8 months ago, I was in a room with all these great men and women behind me talking with the city planners about what they were trying to do here. We addressed our concerns. We asked them why. We asked them, we tried to talk to them about the impact. And they came back to us and said, well, we'll get back with you. We will set up follow-on meetings, and that didn't happen, and they did not make significant changes. From a strategic standpoint, I think we're making a mistake here. And here's why I'd say that. We run the number one, or the largest children's parade in the United States, the third largest parade in the United States. We bring in such great events as Super Bowls, national conventions, NHL. We have all of those different events, and they all use tents in all of these different programs. If we start making it bureaucratic here, we're going to damage the number one industry in the city of Tampa, which is tourism, something that we're all proud of. So let's take a step back. Let's talk with these city planners. Let's make sure we're doing the right things right for safety and for the city of Tampa and for this region. And that's all I'm here to ask.
How's it going, City Council? My name is Sean Barry-Whedon. I am here to speak on the topic of Beta Bay. The resurfacing of Beta Bay needs to be postponed and the design needs to be revisited. The original complete street redesign drastically increased safety with little to no impact on travel time, while also providing opportunity to foster further economic development along this corridor. An engineering and transportation decision was turned into a political decision, and as a result, our community will suffer. Beta Bay should not be a commuter thoroughfare. It should be a retail corridor where local businesses thrive and where pedestrians and bicyclists can safely connect to Bayshore, excuse me. Beta Bay also intersects with the CSX tracks, and this could serve as a future commuter rail corridor. If we repave Beta Bay as is, we will have to go back and repave within the next decade when a commuter rail station is built, because no one will be able to safely walk or bike to take the train to work. Allowing Beta Bay to be repaved will set a dangerous precedent within the city. Would you trust the average citizen to diagnose your medical issues based on their personal opinions? Would you trust the average citizen to teach and nurture your children without formal education? Why are we trusting average citizens to influence the design of our roadways based on how they think a complete street design will affect Beta Bay when we have transportation planners and city engineers who know how the design will affect Beta Bay because they have performed formal studies? We need to let our engineers and transportation planners do their jobs that they were trained and educated for. We cannot continue to design our streets and our cities based on political decisions, mayoral precedent, or the opinions of commuters. We need to rely on evidence-based planning and intelligent modern design. The individuals speeding through neighborhoods should not have stronger voices than those actually living, working, and playing in those neighborhoods. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brian Boyle, and I represent U.S. Tent Rental. I'm the CEO, and it's my understanding that we have met, along with many of these other gentlemen that are here, with the city building department trying to resolve this issue. I'm not going to go into the details. Most of that has already been discussed here. But I want to let you know that we are probably the largest tent and party rental on the west coast of Florida. We have over 100 employees. We are in Tampa doing some of the biggest events that you guys have. Many of them were mentioned here already. We're down at Hyde Park doing some of the big tents down there. The biggest tent we do is 100 by 300, size of a football field, and we go down all the way to 10 by 10s. You can't have the same rules and regulations for everything that we do in the area of tents. I think it's been discussed that what you're doing, I think, is adopting the state rules in regard to temporary structures. And that simply can't be done because those rules were written without regard to the tent industry. And the tents are critical to the major events, as a previous gentleman mentioned. So all we're asking here is that we have a reasonable discussion with your building department personnel. We are definitely interested in safety. That's our biggest concern. And we are members of the American Rental Association, and the International Fabric Association, which has branches in all the major cities. We're in every state. We have representation. This issue has come up all across the country. And we have people that have been involved in negotiations with the city. We could probably get them here to let your building department personnel know what's been resolved in other states and other cities. So all we're asking here is that we have a reasonable discussion on the issues and that we maybe can come up with a solution that represents your concerns and ours. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Julia Mandel, and I'm here representing the Tampa Sports Authority as it relates to the tent issue that you've been hearing about this morning. Tampa Sports Authority does hold a lot of events at their venues, including Raymond James Stadium, in which they do have tents and they do utilize the services you've been hearing about today. They have been raising concerns about this issue for some time and have, I think, continued to raise concerns about this issue and the costs associated with having to go through this process that's being laid out by the building department. I've just gotten involved, and I think what you've heard from a lot of folks today is there's a desire to come to a consensus on this issue, and I think that that's appropriate and important. And I would like to have that opportunity as well, given my background on your building code and my background on these permitting issues. So I am hopeful that we can come to a resolution. I'm hopeful that we can deal with the issues to assure safety at all the venues and all the events. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there is a difference between your short duration events, special events such as they have at Gasparilla, at Curtis Hickson. Gasparilla Music Festival is setting up right now, versus some of the longer term vending tents. And the size of tents and how the tents are utilized. And I think that part of the issue, as I see it, is those issues are not being delineated, and they really need to be. And I think that there is an opportunity to get there. I'm hopeful we have additional time to get there, and I look forward to working with the building department in order to assure that all the events that you hear about that we love in the city of Tampa so much continue. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Steve McLean. I'm here on behalf of the Soho Business Alliance. And as you know, there's a very delicate balance that occurs all along the South Howard corridor. And in November of this past year, we met with transportation, we met with the contractor, we met with the transportation planning people, and we reached a certain number of agreements with them, and I've listed them out here, that 1 through 7 on this email that I've sent to you also, and I'm providing you a copy. Basically, what happened on Monday morning was that contractors showed up and they started blocking off the street. There was no notice, there was no discussion, and there was supposed to be. I've also given you a photograph, which I'll show you here. So all the northbound traffic on Howard was completely eliminated. Driveways and accesses to parking lots were blocked. It is imperative that we start getting back to what was originally agreed upon with the contractor and the city, and simply was that there wasn't going to be a complete elimination of the northbound lane. There was supposed to be a flagman. There was supposed to be coordination with TPD. They were supposed to be able to utilize a north and southbound traffic that was controlled. The barricades were only to be installed where they were needed, but they've been installed all the way from Morrison all the way up to Swan. So you cannot traverse the area. You can't access the parking lots. The valet parking for the Morrison is completely eliminated. When you go on this side over here, where the parking lots are, it says to go to Morrison, and then it says turn left. Okay, you go to Morrison, you turn left, and you try to get behind the Morrison, and it says no entry, road closed, so you can't even get to these parking lots that are providing the necessary parking for the restaurants directly across the street. They were to remove the barricades in the evening and allow the traffic to move northward, except where there was construction that they needed to prepare a safety area for. There was supposed to be a pre-construction meeting with us. That was following the meeting in November. Nothing ever happened. They didn't even inform TPD until I called them Monday morning and asked them, what's going on? So there were a lot of uninformed people. All of the businesses up there, it's forcing traffic to go through the neighborhood. If you want to go northbound from South Howard, you have to turn left on Morrison, you go to McDill Avenue, then you turn right on McDill, and then you turn right again on Swan to go back, all the way back into the district. People are trying to figure out how to do that. Neighbors are stuck, and they initially thought it was some project initiated by the businesses. It wasn't. I talked to Kathy Coyle about it, and she said that, basically they permitted what was submitted to them. Those revised plans were never reviewed with us, not even once. They were supposed to do that, and they issued a permit. I met with a contractor, I met with the city representatives on site Monday morning, and they said, well, they kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, well, we're going off the permit. Well, Kathy Coyle in her office with Debbie Harrington is willing to alter the permit to get back to these safety provisions that were guaranteed to us back in November, but no one has asked them to do that. So you have a number of businesses all the way from Morrison to Swan that are affected. You have all the residences who are trying to get northbound on Howard that now have to either go all the way over to Rome on the east, or you go west to McDill. It is not an acceptable solution. I know it's an administrative prerogative and not within the jurisdiction of the council, but I've asked them and asked them and asked them. TPD intervened. I talked to Captain Moskowitz. He called them. He said, change this, do something. This is not what we planned, and you're putting this on our backs at the 11th hour, and nothing has happened. So I have to come to the council and appeal to you to try to get some answers, to get this restored so that you have a flagman, at least during daylight hours, so that these businesses can be accessed, and so you can access the parking lots, instead of this crazy notion that somehow you keep turning left, and you never are able to get to the parking lot. People can't find it. I mean, in the past, they've had little signs that said, if you want to access this is how you get there. You can't get there from here. So I'm asking the council to intervene and assist us. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Next speaker.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Chad Moore. Thank you for hearing out the numerous comments on the tent issue. As I think is probably clear now, this is something that will have far-reaching impact on a number of people and on our city, and something that's become very dear and endearing to our city, which is Curtis Hickson Park and the festivals that are there. It's bringing people from all around the country to come visit our beautiful city. And I want to reiterate just a couple of points made by Ms. Mandel and Mr. Jab, that this code provision at issue is being misconstrued and will be misapplied. There's a big difference between these temporary tent structures that you see at festivals all over our city, and I think that needs to be accounted for so that we can protect these important events and make sure that this undue burden doesn't change what's happening here, which is a great thing for our city. So one last comment, because I know you've heard a lot, is come out and see it for yourselves this weekend at Gasparilla Music Festival. You can see it in action. You can see these tents and what it means to our city. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Jerry Freeman from Southeastern Seating. I've been putting up temporary seating for the Gasparilla, the Florida State Fair, and many other things for over 36 years. A year ago, we were all invited down to the office on, I guess, North Boulevard to talk to the building department about them moving all temporary items under their control. In the meeting, a lot of issues came up. And in that, the building department assured us that they wanted our input and that if anyone wanted to volunteer to come down and work with them about the new things that they were trying to accomplish, would they volunteer? At that time, I volunteered to come down there. After that, I made 2 other phone calls to volunteer my time to come down there. There had to be some reason that this is cropped up. In the past, the special events and the fire marshal have always handled those type of things through regulations. Somewhere, something had spurred the building department to want to drag this under their control. Now, we all know what happens when we have to build a permanent structure with the building department. You submit the plans. They may have to mark them up. You have to send them back, redraw, resubmit, go back to the engineer, architect, do this, do that. Now, that's the building department, as they should. You're now going to take a fast-moving temporary structure and put that under a slow-moving building department? I don't see any reason why what is the reason you want to pull that into the building department? They're probably already busy enough doing what they do, much less having to deal with all the temporary, fast-moving things that'll have to be done. There's no way when you get out there and you find out you've got to drive a stake down it and you happen to start hitting a water line or electric line and you've got to move the tent 10 feet over from where it is, you're going to have to go back through the building department. There's absolutely no way that you're going to go back through that bureaucracy. They're not made to do that. And the question is, what has happened that this has to be done? What has created the issue that everybody feels like you have to do this away from the way it's been done for years and years? If there are new regulations and safety requirements that you feel need to be implemented, I really think that what you presently have in place could probably adjust and do that with the people that you presently have. So the question is, are we regulating just to regulate? Are we trying to accomplish something better in the future? That's for y'all to decide. And I think if we went back to the concept of let's all get together and find out what we're going to do, like was promised to all of us originally, where we would sit down and put our inputs in with the right people, I think that would be the best way to accomplish this goal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Like and the rest of the council members, this is something kind of realistically untrue to me, but I heard about it a couple of weeks ago when we brought it up. And in 2017, we had 30+ thousand building permits, and the buildings that went up were about $2 billion. In 2018, we had about 25,000, I'm going to say, building permits, and the buildings that went up total $2.7 billion. So what I'm hearing on both sides, and maybe someone from the fire marshal can explain what's going on, I don't see how it can go back to the building department when they're already backlogged in what we're doing. I'm not saying that regulation should come or should not come, but I want to find out the bolts and nuts of it before we make a decision. Do you have anything to say regarding, sir? And I have never spoke to you, so I'm sorry to put you on, or anyone for the building department, so forth and so on.
Excuse me, as point of order, are we going to start the item now instead of going to the agenda?
No, I just asked a question.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
if that's,
I just
okay.
wanted to
Thank
do
you,
that. Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Mr.
One
Ryan.
question, yes, sir.
No, Tom Snelling, Director of Planning and Development. There's a lot of comments that we heard, and Marvin and I were having a quiet conversation here. I was also talking with Jared. There are several things that we can do. I mean, I heard cost was a very big deal. We have some control or some ability to deal with that. Timelines, we can help with that as well. To answer your question directly, Councilman, we are putting in for several new staff members to address the backlog, both for the client facilitators who would handle a lot of this stuff. We're requesting 3 or 4 more of the upcoming budget, as well as for our transportation and natural resources people. So we're making requests to backfill our positions. So what we'll do, if we do what we're able to do and streamline this event, the repetitive nature of these things going along will not come to pass. They'll be relatively simple. The stuff about a general contractor, we're looking at whether or not just a local license can do that, and that way that eliminates a big hurdle that many of them had mentioned. The other thing I just wanted to say is you heard a couple of the speakers say that this is going on nationwide, and for a variety of reasons. So for safety has become very, very much to the front. And as we were updating our procedures, that's where our focus was. So that's why it's coming up now.
I assume that these permits we're giving, they have to have liability insurance, they have to have some coverage of some sort.
They would, yes.
The applicant, not
Yes,
us. Yeah.
and just for a point of clarification, the fire marshal only looks at the fire retardant of the membrane itself. It doesn't look at anything structural or engineering-wise. So it's really just a very small piece of that.
Okay, I'll reserve my time for later for discussion.
All right, so at this time, are there any requests from the public for reconsideration of legislative matters? Then none, we'll go to committee reports. Item number 3, Mr. Vieira.
Explain.
Yeah, well, this item will be on the agenda, later on in the agenda. I don't know. The last item in the agenda? Okay. And we will have further discussion about the tents once we reach the last item on the agenda. All right, Mr. Vieira.
Chair, if I could, I'd prefer reading this one, so I think Mr. Vieira wants to read number 2, probably. It's your item, I just want to make sure.
I have no preference, but you may, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that he got his due on this, on the next item up, so if that's okay, Chair.
Thank you,
it's okay with
Councilman
Mr. Miranda.
Suarez.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I present an ordinance for first reading consideration, an ordinance approving a historic preservation property tax exemption application relative to the restoration, renovation, or rehabilitation of certain property owned by Ybor Tropical LLC, located at 1902 North Avenida República de Cuba, Tampa, Florida, in the Ybor City National Historic Landmark District, based upon certain findings, providing for notice to the property appraiser of Hillsborough County, providing for severability, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
I got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, second reading and adoption will be held on April 4th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
All right, go ahead. Now, item number 4, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hereby move for an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 20, Public Improvements, amending Section 20-1 definitions, creating Section 20-9 diaper changing facilities, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We got a motion from Mr. Vieira, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chair, second reading and adoption will be held on April 4th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, we go to Public Safety Committee. Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. Move file number 5 through 8, or 5 through 8.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Miranda, seconded by Mr. Corn. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Park Recreation, Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I move items 9 through 15.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Maniscalco, seconded by Mr. Corn. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Public Works, Ms. Kapina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Items 16 through 30, and you see the memorandum from the Senior Assistant Attorney to move item 16 to be continued to April 18.
All right, got a motion from Ms. Kapine, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to the Finance Report, Mr. Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move items 31 through 40.
Second. Mr. Chair, does that include the substitution on number 36 that was on the agenda? 36.
36. It does.
Okay.
And number 37? Number 37 is just a note that there's a second reading
Do you have to read
on March 21st.
If you could just also read the title that begins with the resolution.
Okay, it's a resolution amending the Rules of Procedure, Rule 1B1, governing meetings of the City Council of the City of Tampa, providing an effective date.
Thank you.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Corn, seconded by?
Second.
Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, building zone, zoning and preservation, Mr. Vieira.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, which group the amended was?
45 and 49.
Thank you.
I hereby move items 41 through 61, including amendments 45 and 49.
I got a motion from Mr. Vieira, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, transportation, Mr. Suarez.
Thank you, Chair. I move items 62 through 65.
Second.
All right, we got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Klein. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, go to items 66 through 69.
Sir, I'd like to set those for public hearings and set out on our agenda.
Okay, got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
Chair, I'd like to open up public hearings from items number 70 through 86.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 70.
Thank you. Rebecca Kurt, Legal Department. I'm here on item 70, which is a second reading on a clean zone for the 2019 NCAA Women's Final Four. It designates a portion of the downtown area and along the Riverwalk. Up there. Which deals with temporary outdoor sales during the time of the event. The first game, I believe, is Friday, but events start Thursday. This goes into effect Wednesday and then Sunday. And it is just surrounding the area where the events are being held. This is the exact same map that was passed and went into effect in January of last year for the NHL All-Star Game. And I'm available if there are any specific questions.
Any question from council? Okay, anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 70?
Second.
We got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Cohen. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Miranda, read number 70.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move number 70, file number E 2019-8, chapter 27. An ordinance being presented for second reading adoption. An ordinance designating a portion of Tampa as a clean zone in order to regulate activities from April 3, 2019 through April 8, 2019 in preparation for hosting the 2019 NCAA Women's Final Four, designating geographic boundaries, times and dates for the clean zone, regulating and prohibiting temporary outdoor activities, tent signage, commercial promotion, and right-of-way, providing for inspections and permits, providing for penalty, providing for definition, providing for surability, repeating conflicts, and providing an effective date.
Second.
We got a motion from.
Oh, wait, no, we don't do that.
We got a motion from Ms.
Yeah, we do.
Mr. Miranda, second by Ms. Katina. Please call your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay. Anyone going to speak on items 71 through 82? Please stand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Item number 71.
Julie Hardy, Legal Department. I'm here on items 71, 72, 73, and 74. They're all ordinances requesting council acknowledge these old vacating ordinances are null and void due to the petitioner's failure to meet the conditions that were within the ordinances.
All right. Any questions from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 71?
Second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Suarez, second by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Katina, read item number 71.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will. File number C0130-34. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, declaring ordinance number 2002-89, which vacated, closed, discontinued, abandoned certain right-of-ways, portions of Walton Street, Ball Street, Cumberland Street, Garrison Avenue, Caesar Street, together with certain alleys lying in an area generally bounded by Finley Street on the north, Bourne Street and Channelside Drive on the south, Nebraska Avenue on the west, and Beneficial Drive and CSX Railroad on the right-of-way on the east. In the map of Finley and Caesar subdivision, A.W. Gilchrist Oak Grove addition to Tampa and Chamberlain subdivision, all being subdivisions of City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, to be null and void by operation of law due to petitioner's failure to meet the conditions set forth therein, providing for a repeal of all ordinance conflict, providing an effective date.
Got a motion from Ms. Capeen, seconded by Mr. Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, item number 72. Anyone here on item number 72? Anyone from the public wish to speak on item number 72?
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Corn, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, declaring ordinance number 2004-174, which vacated, closed, discontinued, and abandoned rights of right-of-way, portion of Walton Street, Ball Street, Cumberland Street, Garrison Avenue, Caesar Street, together with certain alleys lying in an area generally bounded by Finley Street on the north, Brorane Street and Channelside Drive on the south, Nebraska Avenue on the west, and Beneficial Drive and CSX Railroad right-of-way on the east. A map of Finley and Caesar subdivision, A.W. Gilchrist, Oak Grove addition to Tampa and Chamberlain subdivision, all being subdivisions in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, to be null and void by operation of law due to petitioner's failure to meet the conditions set forth herein, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Suarez. Please record your vote.
Motion carried with Miranda being absent.
Okay, item number 73. Anyone here to speak on item 73? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 73?
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Suarez, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Corn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, declaring ordinance number 2005-104, which vacated, closed, discontinued, and abandoned a portion of right-of-way known as Eunice Avenue, lying between Morgan Street on the west and Jefferson Street on the east, in Hendry and Knight's map of the Garrison, a subdivision in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, to be null and void by operation of law due to petitioner's failure to meet the conditions set forth therein, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
Second. Got a motion from Mr. Corn, second by Mr. Suarez. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we go to item number 74. Anyone here to speak on item number 74? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 74?
Second.
Got a motion from Ms. Capeen, seconded by Mr. Suarez. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Mr. Suarez, 74.
Thank you, Chair. Present an ordinance for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, declaring ordinance number 2007-236, which vacated, closed, discontinued, and abandoned a certain right-of-way, that portion of Ball Street, and is bound by Caesar Street to the west and South Meridian Avenue to the east in A.W. Gilchrist, Oak Grove, a subdivision in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, to be null and void by operation of law due to petitioner's failure to meet the conditions set forth therein, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried with Cohen being absent.
Okay, go to item number 75. Anyone here to speak on item number 75?
Yes, sir. Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. Good morning, City Council members. Items 75 through 82 are all second readings for rezonings that were heard at last month's meeting. All required changes have been done to the site plan in accordance with the motions, and we're ready for all the second readings. I ask that each one of my applicants, when their agenda item is
heard to come up and address the city council. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone in public wish to speak on item number 75?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Go. Mr. Villar.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 7701 South O'Brien Street and in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification IG Industrial General to RS 50 Residential Single Family, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Pierre, second by Mr. Suarez. Please record your vote.
Motion carried with Con being absent.
Item number 76. Anyone here to speak on item number 76?
Counsel Steve McLean, representing the petitioner. I'm here to answer any questions, and we respectfully request your approval.
Any questions from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 76?
Move to close.
Second. Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. McLean. All in favor, motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move item number 76, file number REZ 18-123. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 2502 West Fig Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RM16 residential multifamily to RM18 residential multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Corn. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, counsel.
Item number 77. Anyone here to speak on that 77?
Good morning, Council. Andy Makes, 401 East Jackson Street, here on behalf of the applicant. We have submitted the revised site plans. We respectfully request your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 77?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, seconded by Mr. Corn. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. File number REZ 18-125, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1120 and 1208 East Kennedy Boulevard in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification CD2 Channel District to CD2 Channel District, providing an effective date along with the, what do we got? Including the site plan being amended and revised, specified by Mary Samiego, Land Development Coordination.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Capeen, second by Mr. Miranda. Please record your vote. Okay, item number 78. Item number 78. Anyone here to speak on item number 78? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 78?
Move to close.
Second.
We got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 6209 South 3rd Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RS60 residential single family to RS50 residential single family, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, item number 79. Anyone here for item number 79?
Good morning, council. For the record, Ty Maxey, representing the applicant, here to answer any questions and respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 79?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Corn. All in favor, move say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Corn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 720 West Columbus Drive in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RS60, residential single-family, to PD plan development, residential single-family attached, providing an effective date.
Got a motion from Mr. Klein, second by Mr. Flores. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, item number 80. Anyone here to speak on item number 80?
Good morning, Council. My name is Philip Sears with Campo Engineering, representing the applicant. I'm here to respectfully request your approval.
All right, any question from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 80?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor, motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Suarez.
Thank you, Chair. I present an ordinance for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 503 South Westland Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RM16, residential multifamily, to PD, plan development, residential multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Klein. Please record his vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay. Item number 81. Anyone here on item number 81?
Hey, Ralph Schuler, 1719 North Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant, just here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any question from council? Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 81?
Move to close.
Second. Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Vieira.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 3625 West Azeel Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification PD, plan development, retail, office, multifamily, personal services, to PD, plan development, office, medical, and all RO1 uses, providing an effective date.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Vieira, seconded by Mr. Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, item number 82. Anybody here for item number 82?
I'm the owner seeking no change, so. 82.
Sir?
Sir?
Your name?
Gordon Humphreys.
Thank you.
What did you say?
Excuse me?
Oh, you just here. Oh, okay. Any question from council? All right, anyone in the public wish to speak on item 82?
Move to close.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Corn. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Miranda, 82.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number 82, file number REZ 19-14, an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance rezoning property in general vicinity of 6915 East Broadway Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification C1 commercial intensive and IH industrial heavy to IH industrial heavy, providing an effective date.
Second. Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Vieira. Please record your vote.
Did I miss a page?
Okay, we go to item 83 to 86. Did we open these?
Yeah, Mr. Suarez did earlier.
Okay. If you're going to speak on item 83 through 86, please stand to be sworn in. 83 through 86. If you're going to speak, I think you're going to speak, please stand up and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Item number 83.
Barbara Lynch, Land Development and Coordination. This application has been requested to be continued for 30 days by the applicant. Mr. McLean is here.
Yes, council, we're respectfully requesting that this issue be continued for 30 days.
Which 30 days?
I don't know what the council agenda
That's
looks
what
like.
I'm asking for.
Or the 18th, fourth.
30 days would be April the 4th? Which one?
Which, I'm sorry?
4th to the 18th.
April 4th or 18th.
18th.
All right.
Make a motion to continue this to April 18th.
Second.
At 10:30 a.m.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone in the public wish to speak on this being continued to April the 4th? 18th. Anyone in the public wish to speak on this being continued to April to April? All right, got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Corn. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, council.
Now, item number 84.
Barbara Lynch, Land Development Coordination. EAC 1907 is a city-initiated application to vacate right-of-ways that are in Vila Brothers Park, and I have a map for the overhead. The city owns the property in red, and we're requesting that the alley and part of Cass Street be vacated. It's south of Lemon, north of Carmen, and runs between Tampania and Armenia. The city is going to be doing some park improvements, and they need to have the vacating in order to do that. This is a picture of Cass Street. Cass Street's partially improved to this point, and this picture is from this point, looking toward Armenia. This is Cass Street looking west from Armenia. This is the alley looking east from Tampania. The alleyway again looking west from Armenia. This is Vila Brothers Park, and there is a residence that's off of Cass Street at the dead end, but that part is not being vacated, and that's a photo of their property. The city's requesting an easement over the alley for sewer and a partial easement over Cass Street, and there's some conditions that have been agreed to.
Okay. Anyone here to speak on item number 84?
Move closed.
Second.
All right. Got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Ms. McLean. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move file number 84, file number VAC 19-07. An ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, abandoned right-of-way located south of Lemon Street, north of Carmen Street, east of Tampania Avenue, west of Armenia Avenue, and revised map of West Pines, a subdivision in the city of Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County, the same being more fully described in section 1 thereof, subject to certain easements, reservations, covenants, conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth therein, providing an effective date.
Second. All right, you got a motion from Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Suarez. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Bo?
Mr. Chair, second reading and adoption will be on April 4th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, item number 85.
Barbara Lynch, Land Development Coordination. This is another city-initiated vacating. It's a request to vacate part of Seneca Avenue that's in Forest Hills Park, and I have a map for the overhead. The city owns, this is park in red, and then this is a piece of Seneca that's in the park currently, but it was never vacated. So they're requesting that to be closed. This is a picture of Seneca Avenue looking east from the improved portion of Seneca. There are some structures, some houses here. They're served by the road, but then it is a turnaround. This is Seneca Avenue looking east from Otis. This is the improved portion of Seneca that will not be vacated. And again, Seneca Avenue. And then this is just some pictures of the park. And there's a request for some easements, and the Park Department has agreed to that as well.
Okay. Anyone in the public wish to speak on item number 85? Item number 85.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Suarez, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Clean, would you read number 85?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will file number VAC 19-08. An ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance vacating, closing, discontinuing, abandoning a portion of right-of-way known as Seneca Avenue, lying south of 109th Avenue north of Bougainvillea, east of Otis Avenue, and west of Ola Avenue, in the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, the same being more fully described in Section 1 hereof, subject to certain easements, reservations, covenants, conditions, and restrictions more particularly set forth herein, providing an effective date.
Second. Got a motion from Ms. Levine, second by Mr. Suarez. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion carried with Suarez being absent at vote.
Hearing his voice from this side was really odd.
Second reading and adoption will be on April 4th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
All right, we need a motion just to reschedule.
Motion to reschedule item number 86 to May 2nd, 2019 at 10:30 a.m.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Corn, second by Mr. Brandon. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we go to staff report. Item number 87.
Good morning, Eric Weiss, wastewater department director. This item consists of minor modifications to how we calculate the sewer improvement fees. It's quite complex, and then when we started the utility management system, which is our new billing system, it requires some major programming modifications to do it as it's written. So we came up with a new way that didn't cost our residents any additional money, no programming changes, and that's what we're proposing here.
Any question from council?
Move the resolution.
Second. And a motion from Mr. Corn, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I need to see you. Okay.
Okay, next we're on item 88. Is Mr. Randy Goers here?
Well, Council Randy Goers at the Planning and Urban Design Division. I'm returning to provide you a list of the parks that have a inconsistent future land use designation as requested in the last meeting. We came here last time, there was 92 that we found. I went back and took a closer look at the list that we had. Some of those had a very sliver of right-of-way that was attached to the parcel. May or may not be when we take a close look with the legal description. So about 15 of those fell off and went into the public, quasi-public. So there's still about 78 that have what looks like an inconsistent future land use designation or designations compared to what our the recreation and open space requirement.
Any questions from council?
Okay, I do, Chair, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I think the last time we spoke, you said it might be too cumbersome to change the underlying land use for each of these designated areas, because at the time, you didn't know how many there were. Obviously, we have 78 now that have different land use designations compared to what their actual use is, correct?
Yeah, it's really a management of schedule, time, and resources. I mean, because we talked to the planning commission staff, they don't think they can bundle them. So it is going to require an individual. We think it's going to require an individual plan amendment for each one. So it's getting on the schedule. It's the staff time to do the legal descriptions, the advertising. So it could be just something that takes longer than maybe council would. I don't think it's going to happen in a couple of months. It would be something that we would roll out over time.
Well, let me, I don't know if one of our lawyers want to answer this question. Obviously, if we want to change the land use for each one of these, I don't see anybody jumping up from the legal side. If we wanted to do it in a bundled thing, I don't see why it cannot be done, because we already know the legal descriptions. We could put that into at least in my mind, I think we could probably put it into a larger context. We've already identified them. We know what the legal descriptions are in each one of them. I'm not sure what the problem would be to change the land use on it in a bundled way. I mean, you're making it sound like you have a lot of work to do.
No, well, each one requires a specific legal description to be developed.
Yeah, but don't we already have the legal description? That's the only reason that we can find these for the most part.
No, we find these because we have a GIS map. not a
I
legal
get
description.
that. I mean, but there's a legal description for each one of them somewhere, okay? It's already written down. I
Well,
mean,
that would have to be, if they haven't had any other land that's been attached to it over the years. I mean, it just takes time to validate it.
Right.
It takes time to advertise, it takes time to have each public hearing. It might be possible to have one public hearing, but it has to be noticed to the public. Everyone's got to be, anyone within the 250 feet of the land has got to be noticed.
Right.
So, there might be some ways to take some shortcuts at an actual meeting, but, I just want to be honest with you, we do plan amendments all the time. You hear plan amendments all the time. There's a certain amount of effort that goes into it. I just want to be upfront and honest that it will take a little bit of time.
I'm not saying that you don't put any effort into any of the plan amendments, and I'm not saying that this is not something that might take some time. It is a little bit easier than when it's already owned by the city. We already know what the designations are. We already know that the land use should probably be changed in order to make sure we don't have issues going down the line. And when you have 78 of them on here, I think that it's incredibly important to make sure that we get consistency for what we're going to do. So I would suggest, and I don't know if you're going to be in charge of this, because we're going to have a new administration coming in, and I'm not one of the people that's part of the administration, as we know. So we're going to have to figure it out, because I think that even if you did them in chunks of 20, you could probably get it done in a year or less. I mean, I would think you could probably do that.
Yeah, I think.
So are you suggesting that we could probably go forward and do that? I mean, and try and get that done?
Yeah, I think you could have a motion to transmit to the Planning Commission to begin the process. Planning Commission, as the LPA, they're going to look at the plan amendments. They're going to probably come back to us and say, these are ones that are straightforward. They can get on a schedule. These are ones that are going to take some work. But they're the ones in charge with the schedule when it actually moves forward. Right. But they can start in the cycle, and they can work with our staff to develop how they get done, and the actual work and all that kind of stuff. And if there's complications, we'll come back to council and say, there are some issues here that maybe on certain parcels that we have to spend a little bit more time on.
Yeah, and the only reason I say all this, Mr. Goers, is because, we have very significant parks that are on here that have lots of acreage that probably we need to make sure that they're designated parks on the underlying land use, so we don't have issues down the line. Sure. We have a new council coming in. It's probably the best thing to do is to start the process now. So, without, Ms. Capine's suggestion of this, which I thought was a great suggestion, I appreciate you doing that, because we really, when you look at this list, it's every major park that we have in the city of Tampa is not designated in the underlying land use.
Cypress Point Park, yeah, there's some.
All of them.
And, yes, so. This needs to get started. And,
yeah. I gladly make the motion for the Planning Commission to go forward and to start the process of identifying. I would start with the largest parks first, and people that are out there that don't know this, Babes of Harris Golf Course is one of them. Another one is Copeland Park. Another one is Cypress Point Park. These are very large parks. Lowry Park Zoo. I should say Zoo Tampa at Lowry Park. Let's see here. We have, my gosh, Rogers Park Golf Course. Roman Slide Park, another big one where all the softballs played. Rolett Park. I'm just saying all this and pointing out that it is, yes, it's a large deal, but it's definitely something that's incredibly important. So I'd like to make the motion that that Planning Commission.
36 and Waterfront.
Huh?
Park.
I know that. I saw that too. I didn't want to mention that one. I knew somebody else would catch it. That Planning Commission would start the process of putting the underlying land use designation as public use or public park. I'm trying to remember.
Recreational open space would be for.
Thank you. Recreational open space on all the designated dedicated parks that are listed under Chapter 16 as per the information that you provided us today.
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Suarez, second by McLean. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'd like to make a second motion that the Planning Commission come back to council in, I will make it, let's see, in September, let's make it October, in October 17th, 2019, under staff reports. Huh?
We'll be gone.
I know I'll be gone, but I want to make sure that this thing gets done. So I want to make sure that the council, the new council, gets to see this under staff reports on
I'm gonna
October
second that,
17th.
and I should have seconded the first one, but I was.
You
a
didn't
little
second the
slow.
first one?
No, I
Sorry.
didn't. I didn't. It's
Okay. So they come back on October 17th under staff reports concerning the progress they've made on designating the parks through the Planning Commission. So Planning Commission staff would have to appear.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Flores, second by Ms. McLean. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, those returning council members, y'all keep us in mind when this comes back.
Oh, yeah, that's what they'll be thinking about.
They're gonna have us come here. Yeah.
Especially the lone female on council, which will no longer exist after this, after May 1. There will be no women.
Yeah. Anything else for Mr. Gore? No, thank you. All right, go to item number 89.
Good morning, City Council. Jean Duncan with Transportation and Stormwater Services Department. You'd asked for a status and scope of the Beta Bay Boulevard project. Excuse me. Currently, as you're probably aware, that project is under construction. It's a county resurfacing project. They intentionally delayed the project till after Gasparilla to make sure that we had some minimal impacts in terms of traffic management. In terms of the scope, I have a graphic that just kind of shows simply what we call typical section of the road. If you look at these two shots there on the Elmo, we have an existing 4-lane roadway that is undivided, and with the new project that's being constructed, there are some striping changes that are going to go along with that. The travel lanes are going to be narrowed to about 10 feet. That's going to allow for a buffer to be placed along the sidewalk to make a safer experience for pedestrians on the sidewalk, to have the cars separated further from them. The reduced travel lane width has allowed for traffic calming, excuse me. And we have also recommended to the county that they could go ahead and lower the speed limit from 35 to 35 miles an hour. We've also recommended that they could add what we call sharrows, which are shared bicycle lane markings to draw more attention to potential bicyclists on the roadway. The project is going to be completed by the end of April per the county schedule. They did have a discussion about it on February 20th at their Board of County Commission meeting, and their board directed their staff to go ahead and proceed with the project and asked for it to be completed on schedule, which right now is, as I said, the end of April. The county did put a good amount of investment in the stormwater system out there on the roadway, up to about $1 million. It's going to really address a lot of the flooding issues we've had on Beta Bay and at the Bayshore intersection as well. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to take those.
Just a couple. First of all, the issue that was raised this morning of the TICO poles.
Yes.
And there was some progress hopefully being made on removing some of those so that the sidewalks could be wider. How is that going, and what's the status of
Yes, my last conversation with Alan Denham of TICO, he indicated that they had removed 14 poles, and they're continuing to look at other opportunities to move poles. In some cases, they may need to get some easements in order to move them out of the sidewalk because they would be on private property. But that continues to be a work in progress per TICO.
You know, two other questions. The first one is there seems to have been a lot of complaint from business owners on the corridor that they were not notified of this work being done and that it all happened very quickly without any kind of notice. Can you just shed some light on that? Because it's been a consistent theme lately.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear that communication is not been the best it could be, apparently, with some of the businesses and possibly residents. From the city's perspective, we had a public meeting in February of last year. We put a press release out in March of last year, 2018, describing the recommended alternative. That alternative was based on really a 2-to-1 ratio of comments that we got, 2-to-1 for keeping the roadway as a 4-lane section. So it's overwhelming consensus to not change the roadway at this time. And so a press release was put out in March of 2018. By July of 2018, we had our detailed recommended outline on our website, as well as our fact sheet, all describing exactly what would occur in terms of the new changes. And at that point, the project was, the project recommendation, was relayed to the county for them to decide if they wanted to take our recommendation and move forward, or if they wanted to do something different. So at that point in time, the county, proceeded with their project, and the notification would be, their protocol of whatever they normally do to notify businesses and residences. So I'd have to defer to however they handled that beyond last summer.
So not that we're pointing the finger across the street, but we are essentially saying that the county was responsible for the notice.
Yes.
Okay. I just, want to say there's been so much public discussion about this issue, and there's been a lot of rancor in the community about it. And I think that a lot of the opposition to the original plan centered on the fact that there were that there was a perception that this was about creating space for bike lanes. And in fact, I think as time has gone on, it's really turned into more of a discussion about safety and congestion. And there were two particular issues that I know that I've remained concerned about, others have expressed concern about. And one of them is whether or not the crosswalks that bisect Bay to Bay are going to be somehow enhanced over what they are now, because there's like 4 schools that are within walking distance of the Bay to Bay, McDill, Crosstown, Himes area intersections. Can you shed any light on that at all, whether or not there are any crosswalk improvements taking place?
Yeah, the crosswalk improvements would essentially be, of course, restriping the faded striping markings that are there. We have a lot of ADA ramps that are either not meeting proper criteria or not existing at all. So those ramps are being constructed right now by the county. And also the city, have put in what we call leading pedestrian intervals, which is through our signal timings. These pedestrian intervals allow the indicator for the pedestrian to start crossing before the light turns green, where that right turn traffic would start turning. So what that does is it allows the pedestrian to already be out in the crosswalk before the cars start turning right, and then they're more noticeable to the driver, of course, that there's a pedestrian that's crossing. So those are some of the things that have been done. And of course, with any project, we can continue to layer on additional components to try to continue to make things more safe.
So I just want to say, to close unless there are others that want to speak on this, the one real disappointment that I have over the way that this project is being done is that I think that the idea of left turn lanes would have made a lot more sense. I know that people think that in fact it would bottleneck traffic to have one through lane and left turn lanes, but I really think A, the addition of islands, and B, getting that left turning traffic out of the way of the east-west traffic would have been much better than the design that we're doing, and I'm disappointed that we're not doing it that way. The other question I wanted to ask you did, though, relate to Howard Avenue and what Mr. McLean brought up. I know you are not directly over it, but there were agreements that were made about how that closure was going to happen, that there were going to be flags, that we weren't going to cripple all those businesses down there for 6 full weeks. And I'm very disappointed that all of those representations and agreements seem to have sort of evaporated some way. And my understanding is that you are no longer in charge of that particular decision-making process, but I'm sort of making this appeal right now that we cannot have this northbound lane of Howard closed for 6 weeks. It's going to be a disaster. So I don't even know who I'm appealing to right now, but I'm appealing to someone.
These maintenance of traffic plans, as we call them, that occur during construction, are worked out between the right-of-way permitting group and the contractor. So ideally, those two parties, along with, of course, the businesses, can come to some agreement of what's being planned. I do know that the paving will be completed on the northbound leg by tomorrow, and the maintenance of traffic will be removed for the weekend. And then, of course, the southbound lane work will start. As to what that will call for, I'm not sure. I know the flagmen were considered if we were going to do another portion of the drainage project, which ended up being modified. So that was always just for that certain portion that was then taken out of the plans because of some adjustments. And I do know that the contractor also has a very good reputation of having good communications on their projects. They did hand deliver a letter to all of the residents and businesses, mainly businesses, excuse me, back in November when this public meeting was held, with a contact name and number for anyone to call and reach out and have a one-on-one conversation. So I certainly hope that the contractor who's been willing, and our right-of-way permitting folks who are very creative with their maintenance of traffic plans, and of course the Alliance can reach some consensus. I don't think that southbound lane portion is going to take more than possibly a couple, 3 weeks, which is a long time if you're being inconvenienced by it, but certainly a short time in terms of some of our transportation projects and stormwater projects that we do. So that would be the direction I would suggest to those that are having some concerns, is those three parties can work together and come up with a good suggestion.
Well, our office, and I'm sure some of the others, will weigh in with the staff if we're able to be helpful to try to come up with some solutions.
And we're certainly supportive of our other departments that want some transportation input, so we're happy to assist.
Just real quick, when they talk about reducing the roadway from 4 lanes to 2 lanes with the center median, I always go back to Nebraska Avenue south of Martin Luther King when that was narrowed. And I remember talking to bus drivers telling me, how it's going to back everything up and whatnot, but it flows smoothly, it's safer. You have, significant reductions in pedestrian issues and whatnot. So, I've seen it firsthand. I always use that comparison. But on another note, and this is not on here because you're here, but Himes Avenue from Martin Luther King to Hillsborough, do you know anything about it's in
I just got an
shape.
email from your aide on that. We're going to look into that and see if we can do a interim resurfacing, not just a pothole patch, because I do agree it is in very poor condition in that section.
Yeah, because it's not a complete street project or anything. The medians are there. It's every day I'm getting complaints.
Yes,
so.
we'll certainly look, and I think we can do something pretty quickly on that segment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, the city owed me some reimbursement for a spare tire.
Yes. Yeah.
For driving on that road. Ms. Capini.
Yeah, look into it, drive it. That'll settle the question really quickly.
Yes.
But I want to say, Howard Avenue, I was there Tuesday evening coming north, and it was very confusing. I wound up going through the residential area to MacDill Avenue to head north. It is, and especially at night. And the businesses there, it's non-existent. You can't get to them. The other thing is, I want to say, last week I talked about Cordelia and Glenn, and that it was 2 weeks. It had been the little hole in the ground that hadn't been repaired. Well, it got repaired, and it took 2 weeks and 15 minutes to do it. 15 minutes. But you know what? They left the sign up that the road is closed, going on 3 weeks. And that is dangerous because cars have to drive around the sign and there's a ditch. Why is that sign still up there? I mean, it's massive. It blocks almost the entire street.
I can certainly check on that. I don't know what type of issue it was with probably a cave-in of some kind of a pipe. But I certainly can check and see what was going on in that particular location.
It's repaired. Now they need to take down the sign that the road is closed because cars are still going around the sign, and there's a ditch right there. So it's very treacherous to drive around that sign when the street has been repaired last week. So we're going on 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mrs. Suarez.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ms. Duncan, let's get back to Beta Bay a little bit. You know, one of the issues that we have, and this is not an insult to you at all, engineers aren't really the best communicators when it comes to these kind of projects, or any project per se, because even when they try to get people, people don't show up because they're not sure. I think we have to have a much better effort on the PR side, and that is incumbent on the administration in conjunction with what you're doing with the administration to get information out to people. The Bay to Bay project, when it first came up, we got slammed with emails because it was something that had not been brought up to us specifically about that project. We had voted on a complete streets projects, of course, and then when it came up here, we were just inundated, I know I was, and I'm sure everyone else was too, with emails against the project. Now, I think that part of what has been said before, and I think what we need to make sure that we try and do and work with Florida Department of Transportation and the county, is that we are doing a terrible job of redesigning Dale Mabry in relation to Bay to Bay. We talk about only one road, which is Bay to Bay, and we forget that now the way that FDOT deals with Dale Mabry, even though it has a terminus at the end of the line, literally at MacDill Air Force Base, we still treat it as a high-speed highway. And to me, when you're going through neighborhoods like we are in South Tampa, we need to slow it down, specifically from probably Neptune all the way down to probably Euclid or El Prado. And we don't look at that. And the problem is that I know that FDOT doesn't want us to slow down traffic. They want it to keep moving. And we have to have a real discussion with FDOT to solve that problem, in addition to finding out how we make Bay to Bay safer. The right-of-way issues are always going to be there, and we need to find ways to make sure that TICO and our own tree planting, which we've been dealing with trees for some time now, that isn't taking up our right-of-way. You cannot walk a sidewalk, for the most part. In some of these places that are along either Dale Mabry, Bay to Bay, MacDill, name a street, Palm Avenue, doesn't matter. You have, unfortunately, a difficulty to get in and around sidewalks. There are places that are gaps where people who are on, should be on the sidewalk, people who are motorized wheelchairs or other kinds of scooters, they're on the bike lanes. That's dangerous, incredibly dangerous, because they're usually going the opposite way of traffic. And we are not dealing with that. And it's not your fault. It is incumbent of the way that this growth has kind of captured the city of Tampa, and we have not taken care of the little things. And we need to really look at that. What has FDOT said about re-engineering, if there has ever been a discussion, re-engineering Dale Mabry to make it slower and safer?
I can't say exactly on Dale Mabry, but I have some good news on that topic.
Okay.
And I feel really pleased that DOT is actually following in the city's footsteps. City of Tampa, we have a master plan for speed reduction throughout our entire city. Mm-hmm. And what we've been doing with that master plan is that every opportunity we get to restripe a road, when we can change the physical configuration of the road, we're taking that opportunity not only to add safety elements, but to look at the speed limit posting. That speed limit sign is, of course, just a sign. It doesn't mean anything unless the road tells you how fast you should be going. Mm-hmm. So what we've been doing with our master plan is every opportunity we can reconfigure the road. Narrowing the travel lanes is one of those main things that causes that feeling of needing to go slower. We've been doing that throughout the city and changing our 40 and 35 mile an hour collector streets down to 35 or 30. The DOT just recently reached out to me and indicated they are going to start doing the same type of thing on their state roads that are within the city limits. So it's early on, but at least we know that they're taking that type of approach on their state roads within our city limits.
And in the case of Dale Mabry, it's considered a federal highway.
Yes.
So is that a different designation as opposed to what you just said about state roads?
It is a different designation, but I kind of use that term generically.
Okay.
The state-owned, state-managed, state-owned roads,
Mm-hmm.
some of which have a U.S. designation, they're looking at those corridors now in the same lens that we are to consider the context. When those roads were designed and signed, they were not in the context of a lot of pedestrians and businesses and so forth being along those sidelines. So we're happy that they are taking this perspective. The district secretary we have now at DOT is just been a huge transformative figure over there. He's got personal experiences, unfortunate personal experiences of roadway safety that he's bringing with him that have really allowed that DOT to start looking at things a little bit differently. So I know it's a slow process, but the good news is that the changes are coming, and we feel that they are much more sensitive about these issues than maybe they were in the past.
Well, and Ms. Duncan, the reason I'm asking you all these things is because I'm hoping that you're still going to be sticking around with the new administration, and I'm knocking on wood, you know, and that we have to really, and I think it's incumbent upon you, because you're going to have a new mayor coming in, and that new mayor is not going to understand some of these things, and I know that the two candidates that are running, I think, have a misconception of what it means to make a complete street. Not that they're wrong about it, but they hear the complaints without thinking about the other aspects of it. And I think that we need to have a real discussion with everyone in the city about a few things that you just mentioned. Speeding. We speed way too much. The people that live in this city and the people that come into the city, they speed way too much. And it isn't about what the sign says. It really is about the way that we engineer the road. And the second part of that, because what happens is the safety issue comes into the mind and the psychology of the driver. The driver doesn't want to see bicyclists on the road, so the first thing they say, you're making it more room for the bicyclists, and I don't feel safe driving with a bicyclist there. We need to find ways of putting protected bike lanes, if we're going to put bike lanes. And if we're not going to put bike lanes, we've got to make sure that we explain to people the reason why we engineer a road the way we want to engineer it. It isn't about trying to make it unsafe or slower for people. It is about trying to make it safer and more efficient for people. And we have done a very bad job of that. And again, I do not want to put all the blame on you. You're an engineer. You do things based on what your knowledge and experience is, and it's a great knowledge and experience. You've been a wonderful department head in terms of these things. But it's incredibly difficult to get people to understand the psychology of driving and what speed actually does. And we just haven't done a good enough job of that as an administration. And frankly, you know, we keep trying to push things here in council. It doesn't always translate to everyone else. So I appreciate the report. Thanks so much for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I was not going to bring up Himes Avenue until my colleague, Dennis Calco, brought it up or in a candid way. But I still feel in the neighborhoods of West Tampa, Army Gardens, and Bel Air, and this, I'm not about you, it's not about the city, but somewhere along the line, from Kennedy North to Columbus Drive, you live in one section of the city. But on the same street from Kennedy North to Hillsborough, you live in another section of the city. And they're both hardworking neighborhoods like the rest of the city, Tampa are. From Kennedy South, from Columbus Drive South to Kennedy, you live in hell. You can't get in and out of your own neighborhood. You can't make a left-hand turn when you want. You feel like something is gone from what the neighbors tell me. And I've seen cars go over the little medium that is made for little baby strollers about that high and about that wide. Yet on the other side, and I wonder if it's due to other entities that are there. I'm sure that if we did from Columbus Drive North, the Sports Authority would go crazy. The Buccaneers would go crazy. I would go crazy. Not that I'm not already half crazy. But what I see coming is that we divided a section of the city roadway. You're going to have this whether you like it or not, and you are going to say the same. Can you answer me why?
I'll try to answer your question. The section of road that was recently improved from Kennedy to Columbus, that particular segment of Himes had extremely high crash data.
Excuse me one second. How many deaths did you have?
I apologize. I didn't bring those details with me because I didn't know this was going to be brought up.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
But we had, I can just tell you, high numbers of pedestrian injury crashes that rose up to, much higher levels than we would anticipate. So we were able to get a grant from the Department of Transportation, a highway safety improvement grant, for just that section of Himes Avenue, because of the fact that those injury crashes were in that location. And that's why those project limits were from Kennedy and Columbus. That doesn't mean we've forgotten the rest of the roadway. We just have to cobble money together from wherever we can get an opportunity to try to do a project, and that's the one we did recently.
So you saying that you need money to do Kennedy North? I mean, Columbus Drive North?
We have something in the works for Columbus to the north, but I am going to try to do something interim because of the bad condition of the roadway.
But if we pave it, we're not going to solve a problem. You're going to just exacerbate the problem. You're going to get faster.
Again, when we pave the road, we would, for the permanent, not the interim necessarily, we want to pave it so that we are creating those more traffic calm conditions.
I believe you, but the numbers statistically don't prove that because there's much more traffic north of Columbus than there is south of Columbus because the events that are there, and there has to be more accidents south, mathematically that is. But I'm not arguing with you. Thank you.
All right.
Last thing regarding Howard Avenue. I know Mr. McLean had sent an email regarding that. You know, if he wants to come up, if he can, and is there any, I mean, are you satisfied with the answers or no?
No. You know, we've dealt with Gene Duncan's department, we've dealt with the permitting side, we've dealt with TPD, and they're all saying it starts with contract administration. Contract administration has to change the permit, the request, and insert these protective measures that we all met about, we all agreed about. They have to start it. The permitting side has already agreed to permit it. The TPD office has already agreed to send out an officer. But unless contract administration authorizes it, we're going to be sitting here 6 weeks from now, and we're going to be doing the same problem. The businesses that are there have already effectively lost 30% of their business in 3 days. And the only reason I came to council was because I couldn't get an answer from anybody from contract administration agreeing to change the permit. So, I mean, I'll be happy to meet with them. We met with them before. I met with them in the field on Monday. And they gave me this circuitous explanation about, well, you go around this way and go around this way, and you can't ever get to where you want to be.
No.
So, I mean, I appreciate Gene's explanation about, well, we took it out. This project is listed as a stormwater improvement project. And just, they just took things out. They never met with us again and explained what they took out or why. They never gave us any advance notice. They just showed up Monday morning starting to put barricades up. And so, the first day or two, the businesses said, well, I guess we'll deal with it for a day or two. Please get the flagman out there. Please get the police officer out there so that the businesses don't die. They will die. You will see business closings if they're shut down for 6 weeks. It's just what's going to happen. It's contract administration, and I would greatly appreciate a motion from council to get them to amend their permit request so that we can get the flagman and the police officer back out there so you can have at least restricted traffic going north and south during the daytime business hours. It's the only thing that makes sense. And as Councilman Capine has already pointed out, you can't even follow the signs. They detour you all around. So you're over in Hyde Park, you're over on McDill Avenue. How do you get back?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we have the authority to direct contract administration to amend it. We can request that they do it.
That's fine.
But I don't think we can direct them to do it. So I would make a motion that we request of contract administration that they amend what they're doing.
I don't, and Chair, I don't have a problem with you doing the motion. I'll support it. But is it going to be in a timely enough fashion that it's going to make a difference on this road? I don't know. That's part of the problem. I know it does.
There's a limit to what we can do,
Yeah.
but I think that our discussion speaks for itself in recognizing the seriousness of the situation.
And I would say this, Mr. Cohen, that for goodness sakes, if we're here to talk about this issue and they're talking about something that should have been done from the very beginning, you would think that somebody in the administration would say, you know what, let's make sure it gets done the right way so we're not dealing with this. I'm glad you brought the motion up.
All right, we got a motion from Mr. Cohen, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Council.
Hey, you never know, our good little buddy next door to us might give us a gift. It's a going away gift, you know, he might agree to this.
He's got a short time also.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Okay. We were just discussing about Himes Avenue, Kennedy to Columbus, and then what happens north of there. And we were told that they applied for a grant because there were an inordinate number of accidents. I want to see the number of accidents there. I want to see the number of accidents north of there. I want the,
Kennedy to Columbus, where they did the whole
right,
street.
Kennedy to Columbus, and then Columbus to Hillsborough.
I don't think she has it, but she could get it.
No, that's what I'm asking. I'm making a motion that they come back with that number. Because to apply for a grant, those numbers better be way over. Because in my estimation, it was something that wanted to be done and got done. Not necessarily, if it's needed all the way up Highlands, not just there. So,
In 2 weeks,
yes.
The 21st?
Yes. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion from Ms. Capeen, seconded by Mr. Suarez. All in favor, that motion carries. Those opposed? Okay. Anything else for Ms. Duncan?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we go, last item of the day, item number 90.
Good morning, Council. Tom Stanley, Planning and Development. I thought that since you guys had put the, ladies and gentlemen, had put the tree code pretty much to bed, that you needed another thing to really kind of work on. So I'm bringing you the tents. So where we are, after listening to some of the conversation and speakers this morning, as I said, Marvin and I and Jared and I were talking about the kinds of things that we can do. I believe we can do something towards the actual costs that are expended throughout this process. We could probably do something about the actual timelines that are expended, or
Before you start, can you explain to us what has happened? Because what has happened? Why all of a sudden did this happen? I mean,
okay.
Because we didn't know anything about it until we started hearing from businesses and people all over the city that they were going to go out of business and could not comply with this.
Okay. What has happened, as I just said, we were updating our standard operating procedures, and this was part of that. And again, as the other speaker said, that this is happening around the state and around the other parts of the country as well. This is a Florida building code item, which is outside of your authority to adjust, to change, to amend. That it just is. You know, you can deal with the city's local chapters 1 through wherever we are, 27, 28. But there's really nothing you can do to affect the Florida building code. We're applying the Florida building code as it is written. And Marvin can get up and talk about it. I'll let him talk about that, but that's where it's coming from. It's coming from, we are getting ready to more thoroughly apply, for safety reasons, the Florida building code to temporary structures, tents, membrane structures, and the like. So I'll let Marvin go ahead and talk, and then I can get back up, because he can explain to where this stuff comes.
The Florida Building Code, so when was that written, and why haven't we applied it till now?
We have some flexibility in that, but recent events around the country have made temporary structures and tents come into play more.
Okay.
Indiana.
So it's been on the books, but we never applied it till now.
No, we do.
I want to know.
We are applying it. We are applying it a little bit more rigorously because some of the safety concerns that we have with what's going on. Marvin has some pictures as to why that is.
Okay.
All right, let's hear from you.
And we have been applying it. Go ahead.
Good morning, Council. Marvin Dryden, Building Official, City of Tampa. I did have the City Attorney's Office verify everything that we have in the SOP as far as the codes that are related to it. It actually goes all the way to the international code. So it applies universally across America, North America, everywhere. International Code Council also follows the same line as the Florida Building Code and Chapter 5 of the local municipal code. So I have him here if you'd like to hear from him about the authority to apply this, and also, you know, that it's codified, that we're not making something up here and just applying it. So
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, sir.
Because we keep switching from one to the other. Who we need to start with first? They get the background information.
Okay.
They tell us the history, tell us what's going on, and lead into the next person.
Okay, so that's establishing the codification of it, that it is legal in the authority, so.
Okay, could I just distill this for them, if I could, Chair? Okay, here's the thing. We already had a building code concerning temporary structures, those that were tents specifically. What's the catalyst that caused this? There's some mention that, now was it federal law, was it state law, was there a change there that we had to do in order to meet those regulations? That's the first question, I follow, okay? The second question is, when did those new regulations come in place, if it is a change because of state or federal or county law? Okay, that's the second question. The third question is that when did you start doing this after the first two were applied? Because I assume that we didn't just start looking at our code and change it just because we wanted to change it. It had to be some catalyst. That's what we're trying to find out. What's the catalyst first? And then we can talk about whether or not we should have done this to begin with. So go ahead. I hope that that kind of gets where we want to be.
Yeah, that's what I just
That's
finished
you
saying.
You said that, and they
I
didn't
just-
answer the question.
Well,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
thought they were going
I
to
believe
start
I
to
can bring
answer the
some
question.
clarity
Yeah.
to those questions. Jared Simpson, Assistant City Attorney. I work with the building official. I prepared a brief document that kind of talks about the building code, just in case I was sort of anticipating that these questions would come up.
But wait a minute, here's my point, I'm not finished. That might be the building code. How long has that been on there, and why haven't we applied it before?
Okay,
this is really disturbing.
I hope to get
Yes, thank
through
you.
all that and hopefully answer every question. If there are additional questions, happy to get into further details. So the building code itself has been in place since 1996. It was something that happened statewide after Hurricane Andrew. It comes from the state legislature through Chapter 553, delegated lawmaking authority to the Florida Building Commission. The Florida Building Commission is an administrative body. They create administrative law in accordance with Chapter 553. They're on a 3-year cycle. Every 3 years, they take a look at the building code, the commission does, and they update it. The Florida Building Code, according to statutes, it's the minimum standard throughout the state. And the only power that is delegated to the local government is the power to interpret and enforce the code as the commission writes it. There is some limited authority to amend the Florida Building Code through a local process that has to go up to the commission. But what the statutes say is that we're limited in amending the code only to make it more strict to meet a local need. And we have to justify that need. There's a very particular process in how we can locally amend the code. The statute also creates this position called the building official. So while the building official is a position that's created by our local code, it's also something that's created by the statutes, and it vests the authority to interpret and enforce the code into this position of the building official. There's a process for reviewing interpretation and enforcement actions of the building official. That goes through the Hillsborough County Building Board. We have an interlocal agreement that sets that up. If we don't have a building board, the statute says it goes directly to the Florida Building Commission for review. So the building official, in a way, reports to the building commission, to the state. So while he works for the city, he's also subject to the powers of the state. The statute also says that the initial adoption of and any amendment to the building code is automatically applied statewide without the local government needing to expressly adopt it. So through all that, it's clear that the state statutes create the building code, and then once it's adopted by the commission, it's applied statewide. That's the statutes, and then Marvin can get into a little bit more of the more specific code that comes from the commission and the codes that were relied on in this SOP that are cited in this SOP. You heard from a public commenter earlier that specifically pointed those out, and he can talk about those codes and how he's interpreted them and created this SOP.
If I could, Chair, put that back up, because
Yes,
here's the thing. You made a very cogent argument as to what is actually happening. except for one thing.
This isn't an argument, this is just
Well,
a
not an
statement of
argument.
the law. Thank you.
Well, thank you for parsing my words even more so. That's great for you to say that, but let's talk about this. Because it says on there, under Chapter 553, the Florida Building Commission, are we doing an update that every 3 years? Is that the 3 years update? Is that what the catalyst is? In this case?
No, sir.
Okay, so, hang on. So, there's been no change in state law specific to this particular statute, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we are making the decision without any kind of force from county or state or federal government to make it more stringent as is in the regulation, correct?
There's been the codes that the building official is relying on for this SOP, those codes have been in place.
Okay, so I guess here's the gist of it all, which is, why is it that we have a room full of people that are saying that it is more stringent in some way? Is it the application of what was already on the books? Or, so I want to make sure we get to where we're supposed to be, which is, are we just enforcing it more now than we did before? And this has been on the books for X number of years, and please, if you could tell me how long it's been on the books, it'd probably be important to know that.
When I researched the codes that the building official cites to in his SOP, those codes have been on the books since at least 2007.
Okay, so we have made no changes to the building code concerning these particular structures since 2007. We are just now enforcing what we already had on the books. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that well, I think Marvin can answer that more specifically if you allowed him to get into the details of.
Well, no, it's a simple question because, you set out everything that's supposed to be done, and I totally get that. I understand what's happening. So if we're not changing it and making it more stringent, that means that we must be enforcing it. You keep shaking your head, Mr. Sir. Why don't you come up and answer with your mouth? Yes, because you keep shaking your head. I
Yes,
hate
sir.
that.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and answer instead of Jared answering it so that we get to the bottom of this?
I thought you were speaking
Okay, go
directly
ahead.
to Jared.
Do you
so-
understand the question, though? that
I
just
believe
asked?
I do. I believe I do. So we're
Okay.
talking about.
Just try and answer the question, please.
I got it. So
Okay.
technically speaking, we are not enforcing any change in this SOP at this time. There's been zero enforcement. What we're doing is we're developing it because I don't want to hurt these people who their livelihood depends on this.
Right.
And I've said that to the director, and I've also said that to my administrator.
Right.
This has been more than a year in the making. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to adapt the SOP with many members of this audience so that the industry can fit into it and we can work our way to compliance with the code.
So, and I, just one last time. So
Okay.
the reason why you decided to do this now, because it sounds like there's a change in the SOP methodology. I mean, you're changing the methodology at some point. You're having these meetings.
Yes,
So
sir.
what was the purpose or the thought process in terms of changing that SOP, which obviously has got a lot of consternation among other people? What was the catalyst for that? Why did you do it?
So I've met with many of these people on various projects, all different sizes of projects, from
Sure.
smaller projects. You know, there's an event program in the city of Tampa that's outstanding, and I love it. And I've said it to the director and to the administrator many times. You know, I don't want to disrupt this, but we have to tend towards compliance. So we have to get to where we're moving our standard practices that are in compliance with the code because. Let me jump in real quick. Sure.
So,
changing of the SOPs
he
is- let me
just
ask-
said, are we
answer the
out of
question.
compliance then with state law
I'm
or
sorry, I
something?
didn't
Are we
understand.
out of compliance in some way?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
There.
When
Now we're starting to get to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
what happened here
When
was.
we went
oops,
through-
What happened
I
here,
can't
I'm
answer the
gonna say
question.
this, no, I don't want you, not right now. What happened here was, oops, we're not complying. This has been, that's why I kept asking, how long has this been on there? He said 2007?
On the building code, yes, ma'am.
That's
I also have
12 years.
I have the previous policy from 2012. That is the policy that we've been using as a baseline standard. And this was written by John Barrios, who participated in national level conferences on tent structures.
Okay.
So
Through a recent audit through construction services, one of our gigs, one of our findings, whatever, was that a lot of our standard SOPs were out of date. Marvin, at my request, has been systematically going through and updating our SOPs. This one came up a year, 13, 14 months ago. We said, you know, you look at Gasparilla, if you start to slam this right now in midstream of mid-Gasparilla or mid-event season, if you will, it'll be impossible to do, and they would have been blindsided. So it started a year ago. We put folks on notice that we're going to start and we're going to change it. Now, if there was an oops, Councilwoman, the oops was on me, I'll own it. When Marvin had the first meeting before, and Marvin and Dave had the first meeting previously, like a year ago, the follow-up meetings to that didn't take place, and that's on us. And like I said, what we've heard from today, I see several areas of where we can, you know, meet them with and allow them to, you know, conduct business in many ways as they had before. We will apply the Florida Building Code. That's not going to change. But we have things, our internal processes, our internal fee structures, our internal permit requirements, if you will, can be looked at to be more streamlined and easier to deal with than there is some confusion as to, you know, we're not going to go and look at a 10 by 10 tent and put them through this rigorous engineering thing. We are going to look at a tent that's 60 by 40 and apply some more stringence to that, because that does become the public safety. Because now you have a number of people underneath that tent, occupancy, and there can be fire issues. So there is going to be a scale, if you will, a continuum of a 10 by 10 tent. No, you're not going to do that. Several of the tents that were up at the Gasparilla Art Cellar, those would not have been affected because those are 10 by 20, and they're not all connected. There's separation between each of those. So several events will not be affected whatsoever. Events that put up, you know, 2,400 square feet, 3,000 square feet tents, they will be affected. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, because Marvin is obligated by ethics and by state statute to follow the Florida Building Code. We have some flexibility in that, which Mr. Barrios interpreted one way, Mr. Dryden is interpreting another way, and frankly, I agree with the second interpretation because it stresses safety a little bit more. Costs, timeline, those are things that we can address at the local level. Florida Building Code, we cannot.
Okay, we cannot, but we haven't.
I'm sorry?
We cannot, but we haven't been doing it.
We have been doing a form of it that Mr. Barrios put together. And we want, when we were supposed to, when we were asked to look at our updating our
Applying more
standard.
stringent.
Yes.
I actually have an
larger.
example that I could show you of a case that's been, this tent has been installed in the city of Tampa for 10 years. And there's 500 people inside of this tent in an annual event. So I'd like to show you this one. You can see that. Okay, it's a 60 by 170 tent. So it's a very large tent, and this is the structural integrity of that system. 500 people are inside of that tent.
So that's what Mr. Barrios allowed? Is that what you're saying to me?
This tent would have fallen under the original SOP, but the original SOP that he wrote, it was over 5,000 square feet. But what this demonstrates is the reason why the building code is involved in it. Because the fire marshal's office, who I've worked very closely with, he let me know that this building was structurally not sound, and there's not structure inside of the fire code.
I understand.
So it's inside of the building code. The building code does structure and wind loading. That's the components of temporary structures.
To answer your question, this was not approved by Mr. Barrios.
Right.
It was never reviewed.
It was never reviewed. This has never been
That's the
submitted or
distinction.
reviewed.
Why hasn't it been reviewed?
Because
That's my
they
next
set it at
question.
5,000 square feet. When
I'm
we started
sorry,
discovering.
he said it at 5,000 square feet? Is
And
that what
we're
you're saying?
looking at about cutting that in half.
To 2,500?
So more to 2,500, between 2,000 and 2,500 square feet.
That's the original
For
SOP
these
right
reasons.
there, which exceeds 5,000 square feet individually or aggregately.
I didn't do that when they were speaking, so I'd expect the same.
We
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not gonna allow that while you speaking.
Thank you, sir.
All right?
And I think an important facet of this as well is that I have continued to meet with Mr. Boyle's family. There's an engineer that's in the room that does tent design. He actually sells tents. We've worked together very closely. on engineering standards. We have some great ideas. So as we've developed this SOP, we've migrated because I wanted to come up with a strategy, number one, that allowed these great tent companies that have been around for a long time to be able to pull their own permit. The Florida Building Code says a licensed contractor has to pull the permit. That's what it says in the code. So I've worked diligently to try to find a way. I've been to Hillsborough County Licensing Board to see if I could add a specialty license that these companies could go and get the specialty license, and then they would be able to pull the permits for all the temporary structures in their events. That's one of the things that I've done. I created a strategy inside of this.
Excuse me, so up until now, they had to have a licensed contractor pull the permit?
No, they did not.
Well, okay, well,
Because-
why not? If that's what was on there, okay.
This is the procedure that John had put together. And as things evolved, we're doing it differently. I don't know how else to answer that question.
How else is it, if it's on there and then they needed a licensed contractor and it wasn't done, how did they get the permit?
They weren't getting a building permit. This tent that I showed you here did not have a building permit. The fire marshal issued an event permit according to their code. And he let us know of the structural condition of this tent. That's why a building permit and inspection is a necessary item on these. Or at least
The structures and the tents and the stages and the temporary membrane structures that you saw for the RNC, for Super Bowl, for the college playoff game, all those events where you had these large tents, they triggered over 5,000 square feet. Those were all engineered. They were all inspected. They were all submitted plans. They went through the review process. And my inspectors at the time, especially for those 3 or 4 events that I just mentioned, were basically working 24/7, going out and inspecting them as they were being put up. So it has been applied. We have in the size of the structure that we reviewed and permitted and required engineering structures for was anything over 5,001 square feet. Under that, they were not.
So now we're looking at 2,500.
That's what we're thinking about, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so go on about the permit.
Before you do that, let's get another 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, move for another 30 minutes.
Second.
I got a motion from Ms. Maniscalco, second by Ms. Miranda. All in favor of that motion, say aye. All opposed. All right, you got another question?
No, I want to know, he started to talk about the permitting process and how they're trying to be helpful and what's going to
Yes,
happen.
ma'am. So I have the new SOP here, and there really is a huge amount of misunderstanding about this. So one of the things that we're working on right now with a particular engineer who does work supplying tents in the area is the language that you would see inside of the place where we're requiring signed and sealed. Basically, tents do not make it to the wind loading of the Florida Building Code. Even with reductions that you get in the underlying code, it only gets you down to maybe 90 or 91 mile an hour requirements. So most tents fall in between 40 to 70 mile per hour wind loading capabilities. So we've started to use this past year like a wind mitigation strategy, which lines up with the Municipal Code Chapter 27, which says when you know that a tropical storm is coming, you have to take the tent down, which these responsible people are going to do, obviously, because they don't want to put people at risk either. So that's one of the things that we've been looking at, is removing that sign and seal from it and strategically placing a wind mitigation program in with every package so that it's already predefined. This is when this tent has to come down. So that's one of the changes that we're talking about and have been talking about for a while now. And then also the thing I was telling you about the contractor, that's another huge expense for these companies. And so if we can take that requirement and give them another method to be able to pull that permit, it would reduce that cost as well.
I'm going to ask a question. Did anyone else get the literature that they are bringing up? Do you have it in your backup? Any of this information here?
No.
None.
We haven't
This
distributed
is the
that,
first
no, ma'am.
time. This is the first time we're looking at it.
Well,
as far as
Marvin only put
part
this
of
together
this
except for the proposed procedure. He pulled all that other stuff together after Councilman Miranda made the motion.
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Miranda. Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things, just speak off the cuff, because all this is new to us. Do we have any background information, and certainly I or no one on this council wants to put any public at risk.
Yes, sir.
But the incident that you showed me, how come that was allowed to continue?
I mean, they came in this year to pull their permit, the gentleman for that event. He's been in my office 3 times. We sat down.
I'm not asking about this year. I'm asking when this city saw that, in your opinion of somebody, it was a hazard to safety. Why did it continue?
Well, I mean, like they've said, these events,
I don't want excuses. I want to know why.
I'm telling you, the events come in and then they're gone. So they set their tents up and then they're
just a
gone.
second,
They never
please.
came in for permits,
The
Councilman.
events aren't come in tonight and they're gone in the morning. They last for 2 or 3 days, I assume.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So why was it let to continue?
And in this example, Councilman, this tent did not pull a permit. We didn't know that it existed.
Yeah, like a lot of things don't pull permits.
Yes, sir.
Let's be realistic. Let's
Yes,
not
sir.
talk about one industry. There's a lot of housing, there's a lot of things going on.
Yes,
There's
sir.
a lot of nothing pull permits. When you see in District 6 and in District 5, you find out why. Let's face it. And I'm not here to downgrade the city, I'm trying to lift it up.
Yes, sir.
How many incidents, cost of permit to, tell me the cost, what I need or what this council needs is a before and current.
Yes,
Where
sir.
you're going from where you've been to where you're at, what you're proposing. We don't know what you're proposing.
Right.
I want a scale of fees from 400 to the biggest tent you can buy to this side of what's going to happen. I want to see what the cost is to bear the cost of an engineer, of an architect, of whatever it is that you're trying to explain to us, because we really don't know much about tents, at least I don't. To find out what's going on, and you're talking now about, at least demographically, 400 square feet, 400, 900 square feet, 900 greater, and so forth and so on, from when the first time I see this on dated 2/28 of 19. I haven't seen it. I assume this council hasn't seen it. How many of these tents have blown away? What's the record that you have? What does the fire marshal have? How many fires did they have? I want to know the whole context of why we're doing this and how we're getting to today. If somebody's violating the law and putting it like this instead of way down on the ground, so at least it can hold a 40 to 70 mile an hour wind. We don't know that. You guys are the expert. They're the expert. They're in the business. You're in the business of regulating them. We're not. We got to find out what it is.
Right.
I'm asking to find out before we continue this, to find out what's going on. Factually, I want to know every incident. I want to know from the fire marshal's office how many caught fire. I want to know everything. Everything you can think of. And I ask that you meet with the 10 people and find out where they've had incidents in other cities, because they said they traveled all over. And I want to know what the other cities are doing. We mentioned the federal government, we mentioned other state governments. I want to know where they go, what the regulations are, and what they're
I
having to do
actually
with
have
it.
that information if you'd like to see it.
I don't want it now.
Okay.
I want all of us to get it so we can digest it and read it. You know, you don't take a driving test unless you know how to drive.
Yes, sir.
We don't know anything about this and you ask me to react to it. We're not going to
Okay.
do that.
Would you make that into a motion, Mr.
Just,
Miranda?
can I?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to
Make that a
repeat
motion?
before that, Councilman,
Discuss.
the scale of the fees, the process, before and after
Yes, sir.
process, the cost of engineering, the timelines, the schedules, incidences of failure and other fires in Tampa as well as other cities.
And whatever, anything that, I want you to meet first with these people. Well,
Oh, no,
there's good people here.
we intend to
I
do
want to
that.
find out, I know us want to find out what's going on.
Second.
We want to know what
Yeah.
the actual facts are and how many injuries, how many proportionate.
I just want to say to that, sir, if I could, you know, we permit buildings and they don't collapse in the city of Tampa.
No, I have to.
And this is mandated by
They don't
the
collapse
code.
because we haven't had a hurricane hit the city directly. Or we haven't had a tornado like happened in Atlanta, in Alabama. They will collapse.
Yes, sir.
Nothing stands forever, not even me.
Yes, sir, but that's what the intention of the code is to protect those structures. and
I'm
protect
not
the-
debating that, sir. I just want to know what the facts are.
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Cobain.
I second, that's a motion, right? I
Yes.
second that motion. But I want to also say that you, sir, stated that that tent had been going up for 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So somewhere along the line, somebody dropped the ball, because if it's been going up for 10 years, then you knew that, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm gonna wait for the information to come in. But I wanna point that out, 10 years is a long time not to notice.
I stand corrected. He took these
fire
pictures
marshal.
last year, which is when we decided to start revising some of the code. Or not revising, implementing and following the Florida building
And the
code.
fire marshal's the one that brought it to the
And
attention.
he did his job.
Good afternoon, Council. For the record, John Reed, Fire Marshal. That's exactly true. What we do is, of course, when we permit the tent structures, we go out, we look for life safety elements. The flame certifications on the tents, fire extinguishers in place, is there proper egress? If we notice a severe or a blatant structural integrity issue, we will bring that forward, of course, and that was what happened here. And we, as Marvin stated, we work very closely together, so that was the intent, to bring that forward so that that particular issue could be addressed and corrected.
And you do that with all development, including housing, high-rise, everything.
Yes, and specifically in this area of tents and membrane structures, when we're out there doing our inspections, that's what would have been encountered at that particular time.
Okay, thank you.
So that speaks to some of the impetus as to why we started looking at this closer.
All right, Mr. Miranda, could you summarize your motion?
I'll have to go back and read read what happened on television. Mr. Chairman, I think we got to look at before today and what you're looking for in the future. You got to compare the cost of permitting, what was permitted and allowed, and what the cost was yesterday, to regards to what the cost is for permitting of today forward that you're proposing. I want to know what the sizes of different fees are compared to what was yesterday, going forward after today. I want to know the whole record so that this council can make a decision based on facts, not on just what was presented. And I believe both sides, but in believing both sides, we got to understand why and where does this come from. Also, when you meet with the good folks from the tent industry, what happens into other cities in Florida? What, do they have the same regulation? When they go outside the state, do they have the same regulation? I want to have it uniform. You know, they make cars that go 120 miles an hour, but if you drive that, you're going to kill somebody.
Yes, sir.
Why do we make cars that drive 120 miles an hour? Doesn't make sense, does it? That's what we're asking for. We want to make something that's sensible, that realistically can explain to the general public what this effect means. And that's what it's about, Mr. Chairman. I want to know all about it, from the tent, to the fire marshal's request, to the fiber, the type of fiber they use, the ignition of heat, how much it goes, how much flame it is, how quick it is to get in and out. It happens in every building that we have. Some buildings don't have to be sprinkled, some do. That's what I'm asking, all of it. I want to know all about the industry in a very short period of time, and I know that's difficult. But we didn't bring this up. You all brought it up. So we want to know more about it.
All right, we got a motion from Mr. Miranda, a second by Ms. Capine.
Yesterday.
Second.
What date do you need to meet with? I want to be fair to both sides. What day is the best? You think you can have this after you meet with the people from the industry?
We're gonna have to set up probably a couple of meetings with them. And getting everybody scheduled together, it'll have to be, I'd like to bring it back in front of this council at least one time. So sometime late
We got
April.
April 18th?
What about April 18th?
I mean,
he's asking for a huge amount of information.
Oh, I know.
I'm just afraid I can't accumulate it that fast.
Well, you got
That's our last regular meeting.
yeah, you got a partial report. I mean, you can give us an update or something.
all right, well, I'll take that motion. We'll come back with an update. We will have been able to meet with the industry at least one time by then. And, you know.
And I know sometimes when you make changes,
Is the 18th a workshop?
we're going to make it whatever you want to make it.
No, if it is a workshop, then they can get up and say, yeah, we did talk about that, or
We
no, we
can
didn't
also
talk
waive the
about
rules
that.
if it's not a workshop.
Okay.
It is a workshop after the 18th.
On the 25th, but that's our last meeting.
You don't wanna go out with a bang here?
Yeah.
That's fine, we'll come back with what we have and what we're able to accomplish in that time. We'll bring it back, knowing that it will likely roll to the next council as well.
Mr. Chair, and just like to make a friendly amendment to your motion, and that is, I would like to make sure that Julia Mandel from the Sports Authority, who oversees the Buccaneers Stadium and facility where you see tents out there just about every given weekend, be a part of this discussion. Sure.
I put out a list asking people to sign up, and I'll ask them again if they haven't given me their contact information to do so right after council adjourns. And then whoever puts their name on this list is who I'll initially contact, and I'll ask them if they have other people that are not on this list and not on the contact list to reach out to them as well. I have Julie's
specifically want to
contact
make sure
information.
she's part of that. because
Yes, sir, I can do
the
that.
book stated-
And Mr. Chair, we could direct people that have contacted our office to Mr. Snelling?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Julie, I got-
So,
you got a card?
any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. All right, we thank you.
Thank you, Chandler, ladies.
All right, go to information and report.
Did they say?
Yes.
18th or 25th?
The 18th, we're until we get, not complete agreement, but close to agreement, we're not gonna start. I mean, I think Marvin initially said April 1st, but that's not gonna happen. No, I know. No, and I heard, I was writing down a lot of good stuff.
Get the sign-up sheet.
All right, we're still in session, so please remove yourself
How are you,
quietly.
Sharon? I'm doing okay. This is, yeah, oh,
All
I got
right,
you now.
information report, Mr. Vieira.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I motion that council have Ms. Nora Payne of the New Tampa Players to appear and discuss the Penguin Project's upcoming plays, and the said presentation be on March 21st, 2019, under ceremony activities for 5 minutes.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Vieira, seconded by Mr. Miranda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Miranda? Mr. Payne?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to ratify the presentation of commendations this morning to Jan McLean, Senior Assistant City Attorney, and Sherry Silk, CEO of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Capeen, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Anything else?
Did you ask for public
No,
comment
sir,
yet?
thank you.
Not yet.
On the tents, I'm talking about.
Not yet.
Not yet. The tents, no, we through with the tents. Yeah.
Can I?
No.
So you're done with that, huh?
Yeah, you gotta come back next
Well,
week.
you didn't ask for anything other than the city comments.
Well, that, we did staff report, that's why. So you had your time, 3 minutes.
All I wanted was,
Sir,
what are we gonna do in the
Sir,
interim between now and when they get back to you with,
Sir,
after they met with us?
we're still in
We've got
session.
tents going up.
Okay? We're still in session. All right, Mr. Maniscalco. Mr. Capeen.
Yeah, Mr.
Mr. Cohen.
I have two motions that Mr. Suarez asked me to make for him because he had to excuse himself. The first is that a request of the administration to appear at the beginning of our evening session on March 14th to give council and staff an update on the status of Old City Hall, the air quality relocation timeline for staff and council meetings, and other information pertaining to the work being done on the building. I'm not aware of any work being done on the building, so that's the first motion.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Cohen, second by Mr. Vieira. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And then the second is the council invite Clothes to Kids, Executive Director Patty Hanks and Amanda Saft to share with us their mission and tell us about their new location in Tampa. That would be a 5-minute presentation under ceremonial activities on April 25th at 9 a.m.
I got a motion from Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And motion to receive and file.
I got a motion from Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Somebody want to do public comment? All right. We got a motion to reopen the meeting. Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Wait.
Okay, roll call. All right.
Here.
Here.
Present.
Here. All right, yeah, go ahead, sir.
I apologize. I'm just here as a public policy student from St. Petersburg College.
I was here because I was going to present on, I'm sorry?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to present on agenda item number 4, and that just kind of blew past. So with that being said, good afternoon, members of City Council. My name is John Carrion. I'm a student of Public Policy and Administration from St. Petersburg College. I'd like to start off by saying thank you for allowing me to speak today and for reopening session. Thank you for that. I support the revisions proposed on Chapter 20, Public Improvements, Tampa Code of Ordinances, particularly the creation of Section 9 within Chapter 20, otherwise known as diaper changing facilities. I believe that by establishing a diaper changing stations, regardless of gender, on city-owned restrooms, the City of Tampa is sending a strong message to its citizenry, a message that promotes a family-friendly environment through the City of Tampa, and one that recognizes some of the challenges that fatherhood or modern fatherhood faces today. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 61.1% included both parents being employed. I don't really want to get too in-depth with statistics, but it's just important to note that the dynamics of parenting have changed, that some of the traditional roles reserved for mothers, fathers are now doing. And yes, that includes changing dirty diapers as well. By adding diaper changing facilities or stations to city-owned restrooms, the City of Tampa is essentially saying that we understand what some of the challenges of modern fatherhood, and here's just but a small way that we can help out. I think that this is a common sense ordinance. I think that it's one that the citizens of Tampa would stand behind. And I look forward to the rest of the process. So thank you very much, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Get 2 minutes, real quick. My name is Matthew Para. I'm the owner of Tent Renter Supply. We manufacture the tents that are pretty much at every single one of these events. We've been trying to work collaboratively with Marvin and his team to try to address some of these issues, and I think we're very supportive of moving the safety issues forward. It's a complex issue. There's been people much smarter than myself and industry experts who've been at this for a long time. There's been introductions to the building codes and required revisions. It's not an easy topic, and the most important thing is we've got to have a more formal method to get the group together and have a collective discussion about it. We have a really intense, passionate group of people. They're all very intelligent about their industry and what we all do as part of it. It's not a simple answer, and I get my beep here, so, just we implore you to help us.
That red light means your time is up.
I know.
Yes.
Oh,
So
it's up. I'm
I'm
sorry.
going to say something, since that's what you do, round up your people, get them together with the staff. That's your job.
We have been trying, honestly.
Do it.
The
He just said
the
he's
engagement
gonna-
from the department has been less than
Sir,
desired.
No, we're
you
telling you,
got a message from us
sir.
today to staff,
Yes.
all right? So it's your duty now to follow up.
All right, thank
Since
you.
you're so concerned, do it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
No, thanks for your
All right, thank you. Senator Jim.